This conference will now be recorded.
We got all three of the board members and Tony.
Once you plug that into electricity, so battery doesn't go dead.
What's that?
If you plug the laptop into the electric, so it doesn't go dead.
I didn't, but I can.
Is it on ground?
I might be able to use my,
Just remember you're using yours.
yeah. Oh, no, mine's a 2-port, yours is a 3-port.
But you take them together. What about?
No, plug it.
Yeah.
I know I have it.
Yeah.
I just ran it.
It's, different type of plug.
I might have dropped it outside.
The
I know I
plug,
had
the
it.
computer's different?
Yeah, the mine, mine's,
This part, that plugs into the computer. If they're into the computer.
well, she's got it plugged in to the computer, but we don't.
To see if they're the same,
Well, yours used the same.
look at if it's using the same into the computer as hers did, as yours does.
Well, maybe.
And of course, again, it depends upon what the amperage is, but they're all,
Yeah, they're all pretty much the same. It's not good. No, no, one power.
the one on the
But
far,
That's
that's
not,
it.
that's different.
Oh, yeah, it's a circular. There you
Yeah,
go.
mine's,
You bought one of those cheap.
no, that's a Lenovo, that's a good computer. Best one I've ever had. We had Dells and dumped them almost, they're still new and just,
And then we know 7 years.
yeah, the thing had. They're,
You know what they don't do very well though, yeah, coffee.
Swimming in coffee, yeah.
They don't do very well with coffee. Dear Dunkin' Donuts.
I don't know how that, that's pretty, that almost the whole thing's gone.
So where'd she go?
She's gonna see if she's got the power.
Oh, there she's got it.
There you go.
She left in the car probably.
Got put in the seat, so when I walked away, it stayed.
Mine. Fantastic, all right. Hey, we're rocking and rolling now.
There you go.
There you go.
15 minutes late, but
Yeah,
it's counting.
everyone, I'm sorry about the difficulties. Found out coffee and computers don't mix. You ready to call the meeting order?
Okay, cost order and roll call.
Okay, Mr. LaShire,
Here,
Ms. Holloway,
Here.
Mr. Jensen,
Here.
Ms. O'Connell,
Here.
and Mr. Kish.
Here.
Sir, you have a quorum. The first order of business would be to allow Mr. Jensen and Ms. Holloway to participate remotely.
so moved.
Second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Oh. What's the allegiance?
To the
Flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take this. Sure.
Oh, hey.
Well, I'm gonna put it here because you'll probably do most of the talking.
Yes.
They don't know.
I think so.
You want me to kind of go through this? Would you like me to go through this or?
Yeah, once you Google the agenda.
Okay, well, the agenda you have, basically, we're looking at some, we made a presentation that you have. You also have in your booklet, which
Oh,
talks
really?
about the
Yeah.
rule issues that, we feel should be addressed and discussed. Most of them are utility rules, and then we've got the ERC, and discuss that whole situation. And then additional rules is just whatever you guys have seen as an issue that you might talk to us about. You have audience comments on the agenda items, and then audience comments at the end after they hear everything. Okay. Is that an acceptable agenda? Is the format the same way? I'm sure that ERC is going to be the heaviest discussion, but if we could get through the other stuff, then we won't feel pressed. We do have to get the other stuff done. Okay, so that's why we put ERCs towards the end. All right.
So you approval?
Yes.
All right,
I accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Ray? Aye.
Yep.
Okay. So audience comments. Any audience comments on the agenda?
Okay.
Would you like me to walk through this?
Yeah.
Okay. This workshop was intended to be a workshop to review some suggested changes. We talked about a couple earlier, and it was per the recommendation of the attorney, we were going to have a workshop to discuss those items, such as the meter testing and some fees there. And we saw a lot of other issues that we would like to address. So a workshop was set up, and included in that would be the ERC discussions. So with that, we put together, we call it agenda item 5, but these are the rules for discussions. And we'll go through those and get your input on, you know, what's good or what's bad. As identified, the key concepts, items in boldface have text or examples later in the package. Many items are suggested to either amend to clarify, where we would include either irrigation water or fire and irrigation water. That's just a discussion, clarification, but it is an amendment to the rules where we wouldn't change the rule. We would just put in that reference to include irrigation water or non-potable water, however we decide to go with it. Fire, it's the irrigation water is also fire water, so it could be, you know, either or. In some instances, we have referred to it as both fire slash or irrigation slash fire. Then the other suggestion is that we remove all of the fees and put it into 4 different attachments or exhibits. And that way, we won't have to go through rule changing if you want a slight change in something. And so it's a lot easier, a lot quicker. You still can have a public hearing. You can handle the approval of it however you want, but you don't have to go through that lengthy expense of conducting a public hearing like you're going to have to do with this.
Well, you have to conduct a public hearing, but you don't have to go to the rule development notice in the paper, then the notice of hearing in the newspaper. It's a 10-day notice. Otherwise, it takes about 60 days otherwise to go through the rule amendments. But if we say the rate schedules, that's where there's language in there about we use a separate section of chapter 190 to adopt any rate changes. That we can adopt that without having to amend the whole rule. We amend the rates and they become a schedule amendment. That's what happens. So right now, the rates are in the rule, and that's where we offer. I've had this happen with other districts. Well, most districts have done it
Steve,
that
can
way.
you hear out of the microphone or the amplifier there? Nothing's coming out of there. Randy told me that might happen. I have to crank up the pickup on. Tony, can you say something?
Something. Say something.
Yeah.
Uh,
I might crank it up a little bit more.
There, see if I can send it. the rates there.
Okay,
Yeah, because the rates take up so much of the rule, and it's kind of, I think it's difficult to follow, plus there are some inconsistencies. So that's what we talked about, it having 4 different schedules, sort of in a tabular way or calendar way. And I think Cal attached as part of the materials, a Cuyahoga County rate ordinance, a rate resolution that implements their rates. And you can see how they do tables, and it's a lot easier to follow.
right. Okay, and then the last major suggestion is to pull ERC references that are now in 4.34 and 4.35 and put that into a new section, section 5, which I think it makes it easier to look for and easier to follow. All right, so looking at that, we'll talk about the suggested paragraph changes, some text changes, the various changes that we pulled out of the rules that, we are expressed or identified some additional suggestions that are in the attachments. As Tony said, we've got an example of a resolution on how Collier County changes their rates, on whatever rate they decide to do. And then, we have some discussion. David's got a memo also, but we got some discussion on the ERCs. Okay, we look at, go through the outline. The first one would be paragraph 2.1, and that's basically under your purchasing provisions. And if you look at page 7 of your book, of the booklet, you're right there. The pack.
This one,
Which one?
packet page 7.
No, those are.
Yeah, right there. Flip the page.
Page
No,
7.
no, right there in your hand.
That's right here.
Well, no.
Flip the page, Terry.
If you look at page 7, it says
Flip the page.
suggested policy changes.
But you already passed it, 8, 9.
Okay,
There you go. Okay.
so this is the definitions for continuing contracts. And what Tony has done is basically make reference to the Florida statutes, Tony.
That's it.
Yes,
And it struck almost everything. So any new language is double underlined, and anything that's stricken through would be removed.
the reason why we suggest that is because the legislature will adjust numbers every now and then, as opposed to having to go through the rule amendment process every time the legislature does that. It's just easier referencing that. And one other aspect is it's easier to put that statutory reference in there because later on in that whole statute, it talks about the numbers are adjusted sometimes by another index. And so there's this engineering record index and talks about construction costs. So it may not, it doesn't really apply necessarily to this continuing contract, but it's so much easier because this is a statute that we apply.
Right.
And you'll see that in several different instances where we've stricken specific language out and just made reference to state statute. You got to follow state statute right now.
you just
So,
read it
and
there.
then like, there's one on fees of when we have to bid, we don't have to, that's set by state statute. But we'll get to that. But that's another example of.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah.
I went to the website to print this out so I could read it. It is not the same as what's here.
It
check
should
that?
be, right. Well,
Let's see right here. Same definitions.
yeah, it should be, it should say continuing contract is a contract for professional services entered into. I printed off a copy of the,
Oh, I see the numbers. All right.
yeah, so what you have in your packet is amended.
Yeah, I'm looking at both.
Okay. But the existing rules, just if you wanted to refer to them, is, and this is printed right off the website, so this is what you've got right here. And then the other thing that I am handy now is just some old resolutions that references ERCs.
Right.
Okay, any other discussion on 2.1?
Okay, so No, sorry. All right, so we get this. So this is all that's gonna be in our thing. See, this section 287.
Yes.
So then we gotta go look that up. Or is that gonna be applied to our page?
No, it won't be applied to the page. It's just a
So we have to look it up.
Yes.
Well, there's
So that
a
means
link.
like your contract, and everything.
No,
No.
this relates to contract professional services, and that relates to contracts for engineers, surveying, and mapping, and architectural and landscape architects.
Well, they're professional services.
It doesn't apply to district manager, no, there's a definition of professional services, and it doesn't, it's engineers, architects, landscape architects, surveyors, and mappers, that's all. Oh, there's a separate statute, you gotta love the legislature, dealing with auditor selection. And there is no such animal as continuing contract for auditor selection. You got, again, love the legislature, so.
Okay.
You just pull it up on your computer. State,
And we've got a link that's on the webpage to each of those,
Okay, so if I go to the webpage and I click on this section, it'll take me right to that statute.
it'll take you to the statute, yes. But then you have to go through the statute.
But it at least takes me to it.
Yes.
Okay.
It'll take you to the Florida statute.
Right.
It's not going to take you to this page as well.
Right.
Right, well, but when I'm on this page on our website, it's gonna take me to the Florida
No.
statute.
What you'll see the reference, the statute.
Right,
And then what you'll do is we've got a whole link of all the various different statutes that are applicable. And then you just find 287 and you click on it. It's right at it's additional information where all of your information is kept.
so it's still on the website though.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not like opening up the rules and seeing it right there, but it tells you where you click and then you just go we got chapter 190, 287, 215. There's just every statute that affects the CDD is listed there and if you click on the link, it takes you right to the statute. Okay.
Can I ask a question on, it's 1H, yes it is, on the actual packet.
1H, I'm sorry.
2.1H,
In the existing rules,
yeah. It's on definitions, prohibition against, prohibition against contingent fees. That references Florida statute also. So do you want that description left there or just?
Yes, I think it's
statute?
appropriate to keep that there, yes.
Okay.
now later, Tony's got a suggestion to change that or to strike the dollar amount. If you're looking at
Yeah,
the
no,
existing
H is
rule,
no dollar
section
amount.
2.1.
It's about contingency fees.
Right, okay, so in A is where we would strike the dollar amount.
Right.
So, did you answer the question on H, Tony?
Yes,
I believe I did.
yes, it did.
Okay, 3.2 is the next one. Tony, you want to talk about the preference for local business?
Yeah, at times the legislature, in their infinite wisdom, will engage in preemption of local rules or activities. So that's why you had a caveat, unless otherwise prohibited by Florida law, you can have a local vendor preference. Because the legislature has recently adopted some legislation that may make it more difficult to have that concept. So this gives us a latitude that we can do it unless the legislature says you can't. David, do you have anything to comment? I think David's the one that picked up on this.
No comment.
Okay,
Just to see why, yeah.
Yeah, again, because legislature changed it, it limited the ability to have a vendor preference. So this, we want it, but if it's served by law, we can't have it.
And if you change it or reduce it or something, you have to go through pool. So, then 4.1, we would add irrigation water. 4.2, we have definition for public good. That's one of the reasons that we were going through this, was to define pools. And this does that. And remember, we were going to allow for the metering of, pool water separately from, if it's only water, then we take the sewer off.
Right.
Okay, let's see, that would be, if you look at page 8 of the agenda packet. And Tony is, that's the language that he'd like to use as his definition.
I like how you did that. First you say, well, if it meets the definition, then it's a private pool. But if it doesn't meet the definition, then it's not private. Well, then it's a public pool. I love it.
Actually, I'd like to say I was the clever one to correct that. I think the rules say that.
Should that be changed?
No, I think that's the rest of it.
No, I just, it was cute how they did it.
Okay, and that would allow for anyone, that's an ongoing basis.
In other words, it's kind of as opposed to saying, we're going to define commercial pools as being X. We're going to say commercial pools are not Y.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
And that's what the rules say.
When pools are initially filled, they contact us. Mitch goes out, he puts on a temporary meter and measures the amount of water, and then that amount of water on their bill is not charged for sewer. So that's just for filling. That's, but this is an ongoing, regular situation.
Yeah, we do it in ours same way. We tell our people if they're going to redo their pool, that they run lines from the dock water, because the dock water doesn't have sewer attached to it. And we charge them for filling 10,000 gallons, which is about what our pools are. So,
Okay.
so we do the same. We do the exact same thing.
Yeah. Then section 4.3, not less than 72 hours with written notice. Page 24, see 4.3. I'm trying to, Tony, do you recall what that, the need for 4.3 was 72 hours just?
Well, I thought that when I went through this, 24 hours notice includes weekends. So arguably they can give notice on Friday and staff have to come out on Saturday. So they can give notice on Saturday, staff have to come out on the Sunday.
Yeah.
So I think 72 hours is more than that. If it's on a Friday, then you come out on Monday.
So you're saying change it from 24 to 72?
In written also. This can be telephone.
Where is it?
It's not here.
Okay, all
Right
right.
now, it's 24 hours. No.
So 72 hours. you
Yeah.
want?
Is that okay? All right.
Makes sense.
Paragraph 4.4 is an irrigation water addition, 4.7, 4.10, delinquent billing, and so right now, that says we can put a lien on property. And I'm not sure that we can for delinquent water bills.
And I'll be researching that. I'm telling you about that.
So, but that way you have some additional, we're going through that one yet. 4.11, adjustment of bills to rewrite, and then you see that on page,
4.11.
yeah,
See, the stuff you're
4.11.
talking about is not in this binder.
Yes,
No.
No,
Well,
I have
if you
4.25.
you read this,
Turn the page.
it tells you.
4.25.
The-
Not here. Turn the page.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Never mind. Okay, so page 10 has the adjustments, and that also includes that's 4.11 and then 4.19, which, you know, we would suggest would become 4.21, I believe. 4.5. Okay? And the language that it would be changed to, which we think that the existing is a little cumbersome. And the biggest thing that we would like to see is that right now it says that we'll go back 3 months. And you don't bill in months. I mean, you do, but the billing cycle is every 2 months.
Every two.
So we think it should be either 2 billing cycles or 3 billing cycles, but when we go back, if we test the meter and, you know, we don't know how long it's been bad. Was it just the day before, or was it, you know, and we have a lot of clients or customers, your customers, that want you to go back to times and adjust it.
Yeah, why not?
Well, the problem is, when you say 2 or 3, 2 with every other month billing is 4 months.
That's
Right,
3 with that kind of billing is 6 months.
right,
If we billed every month, it'd be a different story.
right.
But to go back 6 months, that's,
So 2 billing cycles?
Yeah,
I would think.
yeah, I'll go with 2 billing cycles.
4 months.
But now you have a problem there. If you switch over to monthly, can you live with just going back 2 months? That's your other contradiction.
Well, we would say billing cycles. And so
That's-
that would be
The
4
monthly
months.
billing
We could
cycle.
put 2 billing cycles and then in parentheses say 4 months.
Why don't you just say,
Yeah.
why don't you just say
4
4
months.
months, period, and
months.
forget the billing cycle?
Yeah,
Okay, used a minimum of 4 months. Okay, take out billing cycle and say 4 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
That way, if you change from bi-monthly to
Yeah.
monthly, you don't have to change, you don't have to change this.
Okay. You okay with that, Tony?
Yes.
Okay, 4 months. And we've had some situations with the new meters where we've actually been able, somebody for, you know, the first time when they filled their pool, they did it properly. Called us, we went through, and Mitch put a meter on and we gave the sewer credit. And then he had, after it was put in, he had an issue with it and they had to drain it and refill it, and he forgot to tell us. But we were able to, through the new meters, to go back, and at the period when he said it was, you could see a tremendous spike. So we were able to adjust from that.
so with these new meters, that's going to be a lot easier
Oh,
for you to
a lot
determine
easier.
what's happening.
And it takes away from human error in the actual reading. It's been 5 years of a nightmare trying to, you know, we're always sending out for rereads, and, you know, it's just, and now you've got a period of time you got to try and adjust it. These meters are making everyone's life so much easier. So some people don't like the increased consumption, but I mean, it is accurate. Okay, so we had the adjustment to the bills, definition of a commercial pool. 4.20 would also be the inclusion of irrigation water. 4.21 meter testing, we just talked about. 4.22 damaging, tampering, et cetera, with facilities to include, you know, any irrigation water. And Tony, did you write something up on that?
And which one, 4.22
Right here. No, that's.
or 4.25?
4.25.
Yeah, it's in the-
This is the rate.
Yes, it's in there, it's in part of this, again, strike through and underline
Right.
version.
I guess I'm
Page
lost
9.
right
Okay,
now.
page
Anybody else
9.
lost or just
But
me?
I'm following the,
Well, we were just on page 10, now you're saying page 9.
well, because this doesn't follow the pages, because the notes came from different people, the suggestions. So if you follow this, but realizing you might have to go to a page 9 or page 7.
Yeah, the page for 4.25 is this one. It's in the underline, double underline. It says amend section 4.25 to amend the process for amending the utilities rates, fees, and charges.
That's on 9.
And if you see that?
Well, I'm looking at this and I'm looking at what I read at home.
Yeah, so I think this is one to look at.
Yeah.
And the suggestion is, Jennifer had a suggestion. I think David and Jennifer added water management permit review, added would review, and added Schedule D miscellaneous fees. Again, this is just a discussion as we finally get to the drafting process. We may, tinker with this a bit, tweak it, but this is the concept. And then the ability to have a streamlined process, but still requires a public hearing and notice, is a reference to at least one public hearing using the procedure outlined in section 190.035 Florida statutes. And what that particular statute says, let me find it real quick. It won't take too long. And this is used again, it still gives public notice, still gives an opportunity to be heard, so you have all that, but it's a much shorter process. It says that here we go. The rates, fees, and charges, notice of such public hearing shall set forth. It shall have been published in a newspaper in the county and of general circulation in the district at least once and at least 10 days prior to such public hearing. So that's different than having to do the notice of rural development, 28 days in the paper and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, and the language is on page 9 that we changed to. What you saw on the website is the actual existing rule.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so, and you have a hard copy there also, that just for reference. 4.34 would be changed, and become section 5, I'm sorry.
On page 10, we said the billing would be 4.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what are the adjustments listed below?
That would be, that's what this is the language we were suggesting for adjustments. And what we would do is limited to 4 monthly billing cycles, or 4 monthly.
Billing. Yeah.
4 monthly usage.
So this within 60 days of the billing date,
Yes.
doesn't contradict that? In other words, I have to notify you and I can go back 4 months.
Well, I think they're saying the same thing, that if there's an adjustment, we're not going to go back any farther than 4 months to adjust.
Well, again,
But you still only have 60 days to notify you that something might be wrong with your billing. That's,
I've never seen anyone wait that long, 60 days. When they get their bill at this high, they're calling us.
Okay, so this drafting down here, under the adjustments, all that she's talking about, it says 2 billing cycles. It should again say 4 months.
Right.
Right.
I made that change.
Do we reference anywhere upon, under adjustment, upon determination that the meter was performing accurately and no billing errors occurred, no adjustment will be made? Do we want to reference the fact that where we're going to charge for the service?
taking out the meter.
Taking the meter out
Yeah, that-
and putting the temporary meter. You want to reference that here?
No. That would be part of the rate schedule that is either attachment A, B, C, or D.
Well, no, I think it's a combination. I thought we were thinking about, on this proposed policy, we'll kind of incorporate that meter testing and then just use the rate schedule.
That's what I meant. If you said in
That'll
there,
be in this, that'll be in the same area.
okay.
It just, again, hasn't been finalized yet. This is just conceptual.
Yeah, you have on page 12,
Give it back afterwards.
you've got a list of various different miscellaneous fees and charges, and some of them are proposed. This would be page 12 of your packet,
Got it.
and we'll go through all of those. You can see what, you know, yeah, if I reference a page under 20, then it's in the packet. Okay, but that's where we would cover that. Sam,
Okay.
okay? Let's see.
I was just saying, we had a reference there to this section
Oh, say,
saying,
fees, see.
bingo.
That's a good point. So we'll say fees, see.
Whatever this ends up being, D or
Yeah.
E or Schedule D or whatever it is.
You hear that, Tony?
No, I'm sorry.
So like, in the adjustments to the bills, or the fees for, you know, changing or going out and turning on and off.
And nobody
anything like that, we'll make a reference in the rule change, see
Whether it's an exhibit or.
exhibit or attachment or schedule, whatever.
Schedule D or B or whatever.
In the schedules, yeah.
Okay. Same way, 5.1, same thing, 5.2, those will have different numbers, because section 5 is going to be ERCs.
Let's jump back to something that I found more recently. It's on page 32 of the rules. It's section 423, private fire service connection.
If you look at the one that's page, or that's the rules, look at in the bottom, it's hard to read, but there is a number there.
Yeah, what number,
Okay,
what page?
33,
It's on page 32.
32.
This is paragraph 423, second paragraph. We talk about the periodic test of fire systems, and we say that's made to be made in the presence of a representative of the district. Do we need to have some kind of written notification provision there, 72 hours of the test, and then also a fee associated with that? I know we got a whole bunch of them, but
Thoughts? If you look at page, look at the bottom,
the second paragraph.
and it's, so look, go to page 31
Yeah,
at the bottom, and then it extends over to page 33, or 32, I'm sorry. See on page 31 at the bottom, 4.23, private fire service connections.
The paragraph reads, the consumer shall not draw any water whatsoever through this connection for any purpose except for extinguishing fires or for periodic tests of the fire system. Yeah. Which station?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, in other words, 72 in the presence of a representative after 72 hours notice.
Correct. And then also, we want to have a fee for that inspection.
What would you suggest?
Wait. Why would we have a fee for inspection of our fire?
Well, we're requiring a representative of the district to be there, so there's going to be a charge
For the person who come there.
for the person who's there. What much of the test? Typically, the fire system, I think, are tested.
This is for a private fire system. So if you've got a sprinkler system or, you know, inside of a building.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking hydrogen test.
No.
No, this is going to be a hydrant.
This is,
How many of those do we have? in-
yeah.
I would assume we probably got something down at the hotel, maybe more than one there. As far as fire sprinklers.
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna have to have,
How many? I don't remember.
I can't, I don't think any of the condos have them in it, do they?
Well, actually, doesn't Stella Mars and North have a fire sprinkler system in their buildings? But that's a residential type of thing. I'm not sure if they have annual testing of that or not.
I guess one question I have, does the fire district have regular inspections of fire?
They do, yeah.
It sounds like they would typically do that.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah, the fire district typically, I think, does it annually. or requires to be done annually by a private firm, just to make sure that it is operational. A little
So
gray on that area, but
should we remove it?
No, I just don't see a need for a fee. I think that's
Well,
service where it's like a community service.
Well, if they have to do it for the fire district, why would this district impose a fee?
How about if we put in during normal working hours? That way Mitch doesn't have to send somebody out or David, whoever special to do it. I mean, if it's outside of normal working hours,
Well,
there should be a fee.
one other thing too, if this district is comfortable with the fire district representative, we can designate that person as representative of this district.
That works.
and they're right here. So
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because they're the ones that conduct it.
And typically, the test, I don't think takes a whole bunch of part.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess two things, that would obviate the need for a district staff person to go and obviate the need for a fee. The fire district staff.
But notice,
Do you really,
should be within 72 hours notice.
I don't know when the fire district, how they.
Yeah.
So you just-
They usually just schedule it themselves.
Yeah.
You just want to add the word,
It's called a
be made in the presence of a representative of, and then add fire district.
No, I think of the district, we can designate
who represents us.
if you want, if they're agreeable to accepting that designation.
It starts with the fire department.
Yeah,
I would include them.
You're taking notes, right, Tom?
Sure, once I get some consensus, but I know the thinking. Again, I just sometimes don't,
I think the fire department should be responsible for the whole thing.
yeah, doubling, yeah, typically they're the ones.
Yeah, 'cause they want to follow
Specialty
through,
contractors for that,
Yeah.
specialty people for that.
I don't want to be
We
responsible.
provide the line, we provide the water. they-
Right.
I think it's just a matter of somebody being there to make sure that whatever water's used is common.
I just leave that as it is, and then just make a note that we work with the fire district, say, hey.
Yeah, can't say representative of the fire district.
That's,
instead of the
yeah, that's what I
district.
said.
You could do that, for the district or the fire district.
Yeah, just add the word fire.
Fire.
Or fire, either one, that way there's flexibility.
Okay. Some of the fees, other than going through the utility fees, do you see anything that I missed, Tony, that we should discuss?
So Jennifer had a pretty comprehensive analysis. Is she on the line or is she?
I don't think so. She was back.
Wait, the three of us are here, but she's not?
Yeah.
Just kidding. No, she had some really good suggestions that are in the packet.
Yeah, page 12 and 13 of the packet.
Mhm.
And I'd kind of like to go through each one, because she had questions on each, and we want to make sure that they're all covered. Because the fees are a little confusing, right? Okay, so if we're on page 12, the first one is a late payment fee of $25. And if you look at in the rules, page 65, you'll see that it's $25. So it's, and that we would add to the miscellaneous fees and charges. And take any reference in the rules out of that point, that dollar amount, okay? No objection. Ray, Michelle, you can jump in anytime. Can you guys hear us good?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Rachel, we can.
All right, the next one would be a meter reread fee, and there is no charge now. If we're going to put a charge, right now it's in 5.7, page 64, but if we're going to put a charge, we should put it in there. But right now, there is no charge, and we don't charge it. But we do get a lot. We probably get 30, and a lot of times people just don't like how much the bill is, so, but we go through it. When they do the reads, we go through it, we mark any that are large and ask them for a reread. And and then they get back with us.
Are you getting the same people asking for rereads all the time? I mean, is one person asking in an annual thing, are they asking for a reread of 2 or 3 times?
Some we get all the time.
Okay, so
And,
then you need to address that,
Yeah, and
especially with the new meters.
what we've said, you could say the first reread is free. I think we've got it in there. Like one lady calls back, says, I'm never around, I work out of town, and how can I use water? I mean, this went on for 2 years. I kept saying, it went through the meter, you gotta pay for it. And so she said, I've had people, plumbers check, no leaks, whatever. Ditch went out and he found it in 10 minutes. So it was a leak. And that's not a CIP issue. If the leak is beyond the meter, that's an individual's responsibility. If it's behind the meter, then we take care of it. But if the water wouldn't have gone through the meter if it's leaking.
On a reread, they just, with the new meters, they'll just simply go out and rescan the meter, or do you have to physically open the meter, take a look at the physical
No, they
reading?
just take
Yeah,
a
just
reading.
take a reading.
Yeah, like, you know.
I
So
think,
it's actually less to do that way than it is to get out of the truck and go in, pull the meter, move everything out of the way. For some of us, it's got stuff in the way.
And the ones we initiate, now the program for these new meters, you know, I think it's 15% or something. If it's either above or below that, then they flag it. And the guys log in and go out and check it. But before the new meters, we would send them a list. And I don't think people should, if we suspect there's something and we're requesting a reread, I don't think they should be charged back.
No, I agree.
But if they don't agree with us, they say, oh, you got to read that meter again. I mean, we've had people that made us go out 3 times on one billing.
There needs to be a fee for that.
Something.
well, yeah, I know one felt it wasn't their meter. And then when it was checked, it turned out she was in a condo, it was her neighbor's meter they ran. Now, things like that probably won't be happening anymore.
They should now.
So sometimes it's legit, you know, and you have no choice but to call up and ask for the
Right.
read.
Well, and if it's correct, if there's something there, like maybe they assign the wrong meter to the wrong house, then yes, they would be refunded that charge.
Hey, Cal, at a meeting, a couple meetings back, didn't Mitch ask us about this and ask to charge a fee to do it? It seems to me I remember him asking to charge a specific fee for that, for rereads and stuff.
I remember the discussion on the meter. I don't remember on reading.
I didn't remember the reading.
If they felt the meter was wrong.
Well, can we put a fee on there if the reread is the same, you're going to be charged $5 on your next bill?
Sure.
You know what I mean? If it's wrong, well, then we would charge.
Only on a reread initiated by the customer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so reread
Initiated by customer, $5.
initiated.
If no error, yeah, if there's no error, then it's $5 charged.
Isn't it easier now to reread these meters?
Yeah.
I mean, do they have to go out and look at the meter or is it all computerized?
Well, they got to go physically close enough to get a scan on it.
Right.
And it could be from the pickup truck or whatever.
But you know, how big is this area?
I'm just looking at a lot of your other fees are like $10 to $25. You want to have something a little bit closer to that.
Well, it's, yeah, I can't explain it. It's just like years ago when there were drug co-pays, okay? Like General Motors, at the pharmacy level, you used to be able to discount the $5 copay to $0. So then the customer would get it whether they needed it or not. You know, say it was a cough medicine and they went to get it, maybe they weren't coughing anymore, they paid nothing, so they took it. But if they weren't coughing anymore, they didn't pay the $5 to get the other product because they didn't want it. They didn't want to pay $5 for something they didn't need. So this is just an impetus to
Yeah, it's just
prevent
a deterrent.
unnecessary workload on the Just,
Whatever you guys want. So,
I don't know what the dollar amount should be.
that will be a charge, because I don't think Mitch charges for the rereads. So that'll be income to the district.
I don't think we should charge, not for a reread.
Yeah, but then again, what if you've got, like I said, you've got somebody that calls every month and says, come on back and
Right, but
reread
is
my
that gonna
meter.
be charged?
No, but
But then, we want to stop that.
we want to, we
And
don't
like
want that to
your
be continued.
example, your automatic refills on prescriptions. I've gone and refused a prescription because they didn't take that medication anymore.
Right.
So, I mean, there's all different reasons why someone might call. You're the best judge of if it's being abused.
Well, sometimes it is. But, that was before the old, the new meter.
Right.
Just,
To reread right now would be less labor intense too.
why don't we give them one free reread and then
Yeah.
$5 for each one after that?
Yeah, I like that.
So they get one annual.
One annual,
10, because we're out there twice. So let's do $10, keep it in mind.
and then make it 10, so.
Make it 10, so it's the same as everything
Yeah,
else.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
The next one is the turn on, turn off fee with the customer. Now, one of the problems that we have is that somebody will leave and everyone knows how to go out and turn their meter on. We don't know if somebody goes back and turns it on or whatever, and we just got to take the word for it. We don't. We say, that if you have us turn it off, Mitch will go out, they'll turn it off, they'll put a lock on it, and we know that no water's gone through that meter. But if water goes to that meter, what do? It's puts us in a really difficult situation. They swear nobody's been there, but water went through the meter.
But there's no lock on it, right?
Yeah, there's no lock on it. So, I mean, we haven't
Provide the
precedent for
service.
that.
Yeah, you provide the service.
So the issue is, the reason they don't have us turn it off, twofold. One is that they don't want to pay the $10, because it's a $10 turn on, $10 turn off. So they don't want to pay that. The other issue is they might have, they want irrigation water going, but it is a separate meter, so they don't have to turn off the irrigation. Or they have somebody coming in the house and they want to flush the toilets, run the water.
Fill the pool,
Yeah.
Yeah,
fill
your
the
pool guy.
fill the pool.
Yeah.
So. And, I don't think most people realize that we offer that service. I know that a lot of in our development didn't know that we did that.
Everyone I talk to, I probably talk to 80% of the people that call. Because they get a little rough with Barbara and I want to.
Not my neighbors.
So, and we explain that to them, and I tell them, I said, did you call and have us turn off your water? No, I didn't want to pay the $10. Or no, the handyman, the watcher, needs to come in and flush the toilets or whatever. And, but if there wasn't the $10, then maybe they would, more of them would have us.
Are you going to lock them now or just have them come out and do a read on the?
No, if they have us do it, we'll lock them right when they say they want their water suspended.
Okay, there's two ways to turn the water on. One at the top, which he said they're all rusting out. Well, it's that well.
That's the backflow preventer.
Right, but that still shuts your water off.
Yes.
And then you've got the one in the ground, right, that you have to turn.
It's one of
So
the.
how's the consumer, how's the general guy going out there? They sticking a wrench in there and, or?
Maybe they're, we're not turning it off at all.
Yeah, I know. That's what I
I've
mean.
turned my own home.
Yeah, but you turn it off at the backflow preventer, don't you? Yeah, but I don't think anybody turns it off at the,
The main-
Those before the meter.
yeah, I mean, when we had a problem with our irrigation, we turned it off.
We turn it off before the meter, right?
Yes.
That prevents any water from going through the meter. If you turn it off the backflow, you still could have water going through the meter.
Right.
In between those 2 points.
In between those 2 points, if you got a leak, which I had one.
And it's real easy for somebody coming in to do the check of the house or whatever to turn that before he goes in, then he can run a little bit of water and flush the toilets, do those type of things.
Okay. Gonna get ahead of it.
Because my neighbor had that problem. They didn't call to turn off the water. Someone did something around the house and they turned off the water. And then it led to a lot of problems for them because they had no water at the house. So, you got all different situations. And I guess,
And then what happens if, now this is in the future, but what happens if we go to a flat rate for people? They're paying minimum whether they use any water or not. How they-
Well, I don't think you're gonna go to a flat rate where there's no meters.
No, not meters. I didn't mean that. I mean, a flat base rate.
Well, they still gotta pay the flat.
You still have the base rate, but you wouldn't have a consumption rate.
It exists now? What is it?
Well, it's through your assessment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still, but people don't see it that way. General public's not looking at it. Okay, no, I'm just throwing.
So I guess the question is, do you want to charge for the initial, right now, we charge $10 on, $10 off, but there's sections of the rule that are conflicting. There's one portion that says no charge for one annually, and then there's another one that says it's $10 and it doesn't reference any type of.
Why don't you charge 10?
I like that.
I like the,
For somebody going out and turning it off.
then they gotta give, again, just like
one chance.
the meter reread, give them one free and.
One per year,
Yeah,
free,
one per
and if there's any others. So I mean, you don't want to have someone going, well, I'm going to be gone 2 months, and then I'm back a month. So we're turning it on and
Right,
on,
Right.
and then they're gone again for 2 months. And so one per year free
I don't know.
and $10 for all thereafter.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, because that eliminates the call that says, well, I didn't want to pay the $10 to turn it off. You say it's free. You're, oh,
Yeah, one time free.
Okay, so after that, it's $10 per turn on or
turn off.
Well, yeah, but the first turn on, turn off is free.
That's correct.
One per year.
Right.
One per year.
Yeah.
Then into that, each one is $10.
Yes.
So you got to come back.
Okay. Then, but what wouldn't fall under that is for non-payment.
Non-payment.
Somebody's delinquent and we're shutting their water off, they would
They get
not
charged.
get one per year.
Yeah.
That's just voluntary customer request.
Right.
Then we've got on page 62, there's a meter reinstallation fee of $50 for the reinstallation of a water meter and restoration service.
Wait, can we back up a little? The
Yeah,
one right above that says what we just did.
yes.
So you're just gonna cross the first one out or use the second
Well, we
one?
would have, the first one we would shut off, and we'd probably put in there at customer request.
Yeah, but you don't need the two items.
No,
All right, combine that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, sorry, meter.
no problem. The reinstallation fee, which is $50 now, and that's page 62, where you can see that.
What would cause a reinstallation?
If you was a delinquent and you turned it off and took the meter.
The meter
Take the
would,
meter? Yeah.
the meter would be taken if somebody goes in there and tries to bypass the law.
Yes.
So we charge $50?
Yeah. I mean, if somebody tries to bypass the meter,
Should be more than $50. They're tampering, and we check re-installation meter, we charge $50, but it should be $500.
Well, that's for tampering.
Yeah.
He's just talking about the regular person that had their water turned off and then paid their bill. They want to put their water back on. We go out there, reinstall the meter for them and turn their water on. Just a normal, not somebody who's trying to usurp the system, but somebody just doing the way they're supposed to do.
Somebody who requests the meter to be turned off, that was the item we were just discussing. Now, if they do non-payment, then we would go and we would basically lock that meter out. There'd be a $10 charge to come back. Now, if they start messing with the meter and try to bypass the system, then we would pull out that meter.
Yeah, if you look at page 62 of the rules,
Okay, so this is, they're still delinquent.
Right, they're still delinquent.
Yeah.
But they're messing with it.
Yes.
yeah,
It's still not enough money.
well,
They're messing with it. $50 is not.
okay, maybe it needs to be more, but if it, here's what it says. Tampering with a lock-off service will result, which results in the removal of the water meter and unplugging the water service line. A fee of $50 will be charged for meter removal. Monthly minimum charges noted herein will continue to accrue for both water and wastewater service.
I think we're talking two different things. One,
Yeah.
you're talking tampering, and the other, you're talking just restoring the meter. I think you're right. If you're tampering with the meter, there ought to be more than a $50 charge for tampering with the meter. If, when we go to reinstall the meter, $50 is fine. to
But he's
reinstall.
only gonna take the meter out if they're tampering.
That's correct. So there needs to be a fee for tampering with the meter.
So one for taking it
Well, I
out.
think,
One for the back.
wasn't there something in the rules where if the meter is damaged, then it's, I want to say $350. It was, I thought it was a different fee. We've never had it, so that's what, so anyhow, that's your preference, that if they tamper with it, we have to take it out, it's a $50 fee.
Tamper with it, take it out, no, it's not.
But if the meter's fine, and the meter's not damaged, but they just tampered with it, we took it out to check it, and make sure it's fine.
It's still in place.
Well, it'll have to be reinstalled.
I think if it's tampered with, if we go there to take it out, and we
Yeah.
see that they tampered with it, there ought to be a $100 charge at least.
It's gotta
How
be
much-
more.
Bring with the meter.
Okay,
Also, you may want to add $100 plus any costs
That's,
to
yeah.
repair
Yeah, that's fine.
or replace any damaged property owned by the district.
Yeah, if they damage the meter, what's it?
So it's $100 plus.
250.
Yeah.
But I suggest it be $100 plus cost to repair or replace damaged district property.
So does that include labor? Everything else will include
I would
everything,
say,
right?
yeah.
So what if you say,
We can add that, including reasonable labor costs. What I'm reading from is basically the effective utility statutes. And that's one of the,
Okay.
some of the dollars you can recover. That's some money you can recover in a civil action. It'd be a lot easier to say, hey, you owe it under our rules. We don't have to sue you to get it.
Right, yeah, okay.
And that would also be, that would have to be paid before they could get their water service reinstalled.
okay, so what if we said $100 plus the cost of a meter?
I would just say,
If the,
Repair.
no, I think the easiest is $100 plus the costs to repair or replace
Yeah.
Any damage to the water
equipment or
meter.
property owned by the district, including reasonable labor costs.
okay, you got those notes, you can,
Well, I'm just reading,
okay.
reading from the statutes, I think you
Yeah.
track the statutes for
Right.
theft. Because basically that's theft, well, tampering with the statute. It's actually the theft statute.
Okay, the next two are
Somebody doesn't want
basically the same. They're from section 5.3, and that's the deposit. Right now, you guys have zero deposit for a single-family owner occupied home. So that's the deposit,
Or multi-family.
or multifamily, yeah, owner occupied,
It's only if it's renter,
right.
are you being requiring a deposit?
Yeah.
And we have one section that refers to it as 200, and another one refers to it as 150. I think 150 is what you guys approved quite a while ago. That's on page 61 if you're looking for it.
What does an owner pay?
Nothing.
Doesn't pay anything.
When you first move into the neighborhood, you buy a property, you don't pay anything?
Well, no, you've got to pay for the hookup.
But you don't pay a deposit.
Yeah, but if you go in and buy a
How
house
much
that's
is the
got a
hookup?
service, there's nothing.
Yeah, how much is the hookup?
450 in there or something.
No, 750.
Wow.
It's, Plus you've got a sewer hookup fee too. So we're talking about
Oh,
a new
yeah.
house. somebody's
750
building.
and a $900 sewer fee.
Yeah, so yeah, we only need one of these rates.
Right. So we've been charging the 150 because like I say, I think that's
Yeah.
what you meant. But in the rules, it said one place it says 200 and then right below it says 150. So
Yes.
150 is good.
Yep.
Rents are so high.
Okay, we don't have anything for a cost for a non-payment on a check. And the check gets returned, and it costs you guys, I think the bank's got now, I've got a relationship with them, and they don't charge you.
But if you change banks, there could be a charge, so you
Right.
gotta leave that open.
Yeah, you wanna, but we should put something in there.
I've seen it between $12 and some are $25.
I've seen 50.
I was gonna say, I've seen 50.
But you gotta change your bank.
No, not mine. But I've seen $50 when I was in business. We got charged $50 for certain people.
The business
Yeah,
account?
that's
Yeah.
the typical I've seen is, I've not seen less, I think I've seen 25. But most of them are 50, and I have seen a couple that are 75.
Wow.
I mean, it gets expensive because you've got to void the check out. The bank's going to charge a fee.
You know, yeah, I don't care about that much. But the customer is a renter, responsibility lies with the renter, not the property owner.
Yes.
I'm not crazy about that.
I kind of wondered about that too, because it
Well,
doesn't affect your ability to lien the property if they don't.
it can be, if the property owner wants it in his name, he can do that. It's we open an account, and whoever opens the account,
No, I don't care.
I haven't seen a single owner that wants it in their name. They
Right.
always say, put it in the renter's name.
Yeah.
We're talking about the service.
I
Who
understand.
pays that monthly bill or every 2-month bill? So whoever is paying it is responsible for it. And, you know, if the.
So the renter, okay, so the renter forfeits,
Yeah.
takes all, does it, so, and what happens? We
Well,
don't get paid.
right, we
Yes.
dog them, we
That's,
try and
that's a
dog
risk
them.
of doing business.
That's a risk for us.
Well, we do have a $150 deposit.
Deposit.
Oh, okay, so we just keep the
Right.
deposit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, we use the deposit against
I think the
everybody
return
else.
we
Okay.
have is.
So we've had
That probably covers a
Yeah, I
month's,
forgot
that
about that.
probably covers a month's worth of use.
Oh, yeah, easily, yeah.
But I would say 25, but you guys were saying
Okay.
you've seen higher, so.
I would, it could be nothing if you want. I mean, and you guys.
No, if the bank charges you.
Yeah, and say you lose money on that deal if they charge you.
What would you guys like to see?
I've seen 25, but if you're getting charged higher, you need to recoup what you're paying.
Like my bank's 37.50, I think, something. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's 250.
50?
Yeah.
Okay. Michelle, Ray, are you guys okay with $50 for NFS checks?
Yep, 50 sounds good.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Then we've got during, the trip fee, we're thinking, and I think Mitch did mention something on that. I don't know if it's at a board meeting, but when they go out to do a reread or special reads or anything else, do you want to charge for that? Now, what we're saying, if you do, you would have either normal business hours, which we're saying could be, see, this is proposed, this isn't existing. But because we want to be able to get everything now, we wanted to throw that out and see if you had an interest. So if there's a special trip fee during normal business hours, there's a $35 charge. If it's after hours, then it's $50. Right now, we don't send anyone out after hours. If there is an emergency, water main break or something, then obviously Mitch sends people out. But if there isn't,
I think you either put it in with your meter reread fee or don't have it at all. I mean, there's nothing that bugs me worse than you come out and they say, well, it'll be $15 or $10 for a reread. And then you find out there's a $35 fee for them to come out there to give you the $10 fee.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So either include it in the fee to begin with or or don't have it at all? 'Cause
Yeah, because before you had zero
They don't
per
have it,
meter.
yeah.
Yes, I don't,
Okay, so nothing there, and after hours, we just don't do it.
we don't do it.
People are generally
Yeah.
accepting of that. Then, we had the temporary meter backflow deposit. Sometimes like during the construction or demolition, they had us put in a meter, which we did. And there was some issues, but at the time, they didn't bring it to our attention. And they were looking at $22,000 billing.
You didn't get it?
No, but we got like 3,000, I think. It was adjusted. The problem was when the meter was read, they didn't give us a correct reading. So that's why these meters are so good. So, but from the reading we had, they had a $22,000 bill, and the guy says, hey, we've never had that. And if we've got a deposit, then we know, number one, we're going to get paid. At least we have something against that payment. And number two, they're going to contact us when they're done. That was Honk didn't contact us probably for over a month after they're done with the demolition.
Yeah, Ken, one other approach might be, haven't talked about, it just came to mind. Some places will have actually an application for temporary meter.
Yeah.
And in there it talks about, here's the type of meter, here's how long we need it, a list of deposit amount and
Yeah, we didn't develop an application, that would be a problem. But is $1,000 acceptable? They'll get it back, it's not a charge.
Yeah, because I seen it on my block, that meter was spraying day after day after day, and they never called on it. And I think last meeting, they said they went out and fixed it. So all that water was their fault. You couldn't help but hear it.
Right.
So, yeah, I'd say 1,000.
Okay. So it will include a application process in that.
Should there be a separate charge for the meter size too? Because different meters may cost more for us to procure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most times it's a standard meter, but yeah, sometimes like when they tore down that hotel, I would have thought they maybe used a bigger meter.
Because then you have like a meter.
2 or 4 inch, I forgot what it was based on size. Okay, we'll structure it, $1,000 being a normal homeowner one, which is a 5/8. And then we'll go with the structure it up, like maybe 20% of the cost of the meter.
Why would you get, like you say, the cost of the meter? Why does size matter?
Well, because the meter is more expensive.
Well, part of it's,
But
you
you
can
have
make an
it,
assumption
don't you?
anyway, but yeah, the cost of the meter.
That homeowner or building or whatever is going to keep that meter, aren't they?
No,
No, it's temporary.
No.
it's
It's a
temporary.
different kind of meter?
Where do you keep the meter? Maybe the 1,000 for the bigger meter, 500 for a smaller meter.
Okay,
All right,
we just threw out a number for discussion, so.
yeah,
And I thought about the different meters.
Yeah.
So 500 or 1,000, 500 for residential.
Residential.
Now, this isn't the meter they're gonna get, it's just a temporary meter just during construction
Right.
or demolition. So either 1,000 or 500, depending on anything over the size of, so from 1.5 inches up to 6 inches. All right, and then we talked about the meter accuracy testing, where we're pulling it off. These were the fees that was
Right.
discussed at the last time. Are we still good with that?
Yep.
Okay. And we'll put that into the schedule then. Okay, I think that covers the general rules, and we have pretty much everything. Did I miss anything, Tony?
what about this note about how Collier County handles the charges?
Oh, yeah, that was, and that page 15 through, that's just to give you an example. of how we come up with any rate changes that you do.
In the
Form
format,
resolution.
yeah, in the formatting form, so it's more columnar, I'll call it.
Okay. I'm looking at some of my notes, paragraph 431. Of the rule, talks about refundable advances. And right now it just identifies whether new facilities are required and so forth or extensions. But in some cases, a new project may dictate that there has to be certain upgrades to existing facilities. And I'm wondering if maybe we need to expand that language a little bit. Back on page 37 of the rules.
What did you have in mind?
Would you maybe just add a sentence saying to further temporarily defray the cost of any off-site extension of water and or wastewater mains and pump stations necessary to connect the property with the terminus.
Which line?
431.
431.
On page 37, refundable advances.
Maybe we need to say to further defray, eliminate the word temporarily, defray the cost of any off-site extension of water or wastewater mains and pumping stations, and any upsizing or replacement of existing facilities.
Does that make sense?
I don't think so.
And I don't think it's going to have much of an impact, but it does clarify. And
Well, I think the term temporarily defray is sort of leads into the concept that this one developer is paying for the whole extension, that's also ultimately going to be shared in by others. So that's why it talks about later on, may be required to advance the hydraulic share applicable to other undeveloped property. And then, so then it talks about all amounts expended by developer over and above the hydraulic share shall be refunded. So I think the word temporarily defray the cost.
Maybe okay.
Yeah, or, to further. Let me look at that, David. It may be okay because of what follows that.
Okay. It was just something that jumped out to me that.
Well, because further down, it says all amounts expended by developer over and above developer's hydraulic share.
Goes back to his refund.
Refunded back to the developer. So that's why it's temporary.
Yeah, I think it works as is.
Okay.
we'll make those changes. I don't know if we'll get them to your October meeting, but we've got a little bit of time, so Tony will get with Chris and see what we can do.
Yeah, I'm thinking we may have,
We were anticipating you would draft the changes.
and it's going to not be an overnight.
Right.
Right.
But we got almost a month.
Well, a month is still a short period of time.
Okay.
I mean, it might, because what we do, by way of example, we get later on in here, it's not just changing these a few words there. If we take out the whole meter section, and then we create the whole tables, that's something we need to work with Dave and Jennifer on, create those tables. I'm not good at creating tables, quite frankly. And so then we have in the rules, we get into the ERCs, but I think it's going to be more than we'll try to have a draft by the next board meeting.
Well,
But that's only three,
November.
that's only 3 weeks away.
Right.
Okay, so these are all the rates that we're talking about that are affected to create a shorter term of action.
Yeah, it's still a public hearing process, but it's a shorter time frame.
And what about water rates themselves?
That'll be part of
That'll be part of the schedule.
the schedules. There'll be 4 schedules of rates.
But that will be included with this, right?
What we're proposing is, correct, at the same time, we can hold the public hearing on amending the rule to take the rates out of the rule per se, have them in the schedules,
Right.
and then the schedules can be adopted by that other notice process as well as the rule amendment process. Yeah, but yeah, it will be done at the same time.
Okay. All right, that takes us to ERCs, and let me just preface this, any changes you make in ERC won't be effective till next year.
2023.
Yeah, we'll know how we're going to manage them, but your assessment goal has already been submitted.
So,
So for fiscal year 21, 22, that's already, you can't change that. That's already been levied. So this would start October 2022 and therefore thereafter. I mean, I guess you could refund people money. I don't know about that, but that, those are already, those ERs, those charges, assessments are already on the tax bill.
that includes the refund of the debt assessment.
Right, yeah. But there is no debt assessment. That's been
No.
taken off, right?
Right, but the community gets back 80% of that now that the debt is paid off. That's in
Right.
2022 budget.
That's why you decreased it $300,
Right.
the utility ERC. So if basically, I mean, we've gone back at 90. And there are no assessment methodologies. How it was set up was developed by, I don't know if O Montez was involved, but the developer set it up. And, you know, Tony sent a bunch of resolutions that is, we probably have, well, we do have them in a record of proceedings back then, but that's in paper and I have to where he pulled everything up to the court records. And so you have everything there, but there is no methodology that I would find. What there is an assignment of ERCs. And then once you've identified the number of ERCs, you divide it into what your costs are for that year. And
No, just to correct, there is a methodology, but that document is not, we haven't found it yet. It's in the record or something. Because the resolutions reflect that there was a equalization and the assessment role. So and that was back in 1990 when they did the first validation. First borrow.
yeah, well, it was approved in 90, so
Yeah, sometime before that.
yeah, before 90.
Yeah, and we do have a sketch with the assignments for it, stated like 93 when it was faxed. But, you know, that's about the only thing we've been.
And that's the same thing you're using today, which is what I included in the memo I sent a couple meetings ago. And, but you see the same allocation, this sheet here is the same one that's been used, you know, pretty much forever, except if there was some transfers from one property owner to another. And first shoe cart was, you know, getting all that we get. So that's why the South Hotel has quite a few. So, but now is the time, you have time to be able to develop the type of system that you're looking for. And, you know, it's going to take a while and you'll have it in place for your next budget, which is starting April or May.
Let me ask this question. Speaking of the acreage back here, was it done with like what Collier County said you could build back there? In other words, how did you know whether you use a hotel room or use a residence or what?
That was set on, that was the existing usage was, anyone knows better than me, was RV. And there was 300 ERCs for that. And then there was others that was attached to it.
And normally that stays there until, let's say someone goes to Collier County and they say, not an RV, I want to do one family homes, which is a higher rate for the ERCs.
Well, no, the same rate. An ERC is an ERC. That the cost is the same.
Depends on
It's
what you
just the
build.
number of ERCs you have. Right. So if you're putting in a RV park, then each slip is .4.
Point four.
what you're paying.
Right.
So if you put in an RV
But it's
park,
still
you only need 200, you have to sell your 100?
No. No, then it would be adjusted, but the board right now it has to be transferred. He has to find somebody to take it. Right? Yeah. But,
It's going to be approved by the board too.
right. And so, when the board took over parcel 13, everything left, you decide what you're going to build and then but I said, the RV park, the original one, which I guess wasn't very nice, but that, they had 300 ERCs, and that probably, they might have 600 or 700 slips there, or spots.
So before we took it over, that annual assessment was still based on RVs being back.
Yes,
It was based on 300.
right.
Yeah, the
Yeah, but that's
ERC
great.
value stays with the property even if you're not fully utilized.
Yeah, they have 300, but their rate was, like, let's, for lack of a better, a condo rate. Now, if someone comes in and builds homes, that rate will change, won't it? To residential.
Sure,
ERC.
yeah. He would submit a plan. The board would accept it. And then the county would accept it, but it'd be an approved plan through an LDO. And then we would assign, David would go through it and figure out what the number of ERCs for utility operations are.
And if we came up with 250 and that property had 300, they would continue to pay not only the 250, but the other 50 to make 300 total.
And that, they would pay according to the rate they're paying on the 250.
Their assessment would be based upon 300.
Yeah, the assessment's on 300, but what rate of the ERC are you billing for the extra 50? The rate that the 250 is paying.
Well, it would be a total of 300 ERCs.
Right. So if they only needed 200, they would have 100 extra that if they couldn't find somebody to buy them.
Yeah, I understand that, but one step ahead, the rate, how do you determine the rate?
The number of ERCs divided into your budget. And if one ERC can accommodate 2.5 RVs, that's fine.
You're not billing them for 2.5 RVs. So they're there? I
Well,
guess.
okay.
I don't know.
Look at Zeman. They had
300 RVs. They went
300 RVs, so they needed 120.
120 ERC is what they need.
Because of the rate for RVs.
These is 0.4 of,
Right, so that's what I'm saying. If you're gonna build one-family homes.
then the rate
it's
will
gonna
go up to
be at
one,
that rate.
then one, you'll go up to one full ERC.
All right, so
So if you're building 300 homes, you'd need 300 ERCs.
ERC.
So before we took over this property, the rate they were paying in ERCs was the rate of the zoning.
Correct. The 300. What was the initial assignment? Right.
But the way it's set up now, if somebody wanted to put in 30 homes over there, they're still gonna pay for 300 RV sites.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yes, they
No,
are.
they're gonna pay 300 ERCs.
They're going to pay 300
They're still gonna pay
ERCs.
300 ERCs even though they don't need them.
That-
Right.
So nobody's gonna do it.
Well,
we're
that's
talking, are we talking parcel 13?
Yeah,
Right now,
pretty
we're talking
much.
about-
But there are no ERCs on parcel
No,
13.
forget that prior to us
Oh,
taking.
prior,
it.
yes, okay, got you, yes, all right, but not now.
No,
There are no ERCs on parcel
right, it's
13.
government.
Well, they're ERCs, we just aren't collecting.
No, there are no ERCs on
There's
parcel
no
13.
ERCs. We don't get government.
260
We
or
don't get billed. We don't get billed for the
I
state.
know, I get it.
Yeah.
But if you sell it, they go with them.
No, they have to buy the
There's none
ERCs
of
from us.
Okay, so if somebody goes to buy that property, right, the whole thing, and they said, okay, I can tell you right now, I'm gonna need 40 ERCs. What are you gonna do?
Sell them 40 ERCs.
Well, they have to have a plan.
Right.
And they give it to David, and if he says they only need 40 ERCs, then you either approve or disapprove.
That's right. You either sell it to them or not.
It's virgin land, there's no ERCs on it.
Hey, Cal, can I ask you a question? Okay.
Ray's got a question.
Cal, can I ask you something? How did that happen? I mean, when we got it from Bruce Holichek, I'm assuming you're saying that Bruce Holichek was paying on 300 ERCs. Now, just because we took it over and we own it, what happened to the 300 ERCs at that point?
We own them.
That there are none on there now. Where are
We
they?
took them in.
We own them. We have excess now.
Yeah, we took them in and now have the access.
Well, but I think what Russell's asking, and I understand the question, why are they not still attached to the property just like across the street? It's the same thing. Why didn't they transact with the property just like the CR4 lot did?
Because we are government, we don't pay the assessments.
So
When it's sold, they will get ERCs.
No, I
Whereas the other parcel,
understand we don't pay on them, but why don't they ride with the property so that when we sell it, we have to sell it with 300 ERCs, not a customization?
that's your choice. The board can do that.
You see what I mean? In other words, just because we took it over, why don't the ERCs ride with the parcel?
I think because we, as the board that took it over, have the right to either do that or drop it back to zero, take the ERCs back into our fold, so to speak, and then assign ERCs as it's sold. I think that's what we're talking about.
yes.
Yeah, I think if the board was to say there are ERCs on it and the district has to pay it, the way the district would get the money for it is to spread that among all the other property owners.
That's correct.
I mean,
Right. But I just mean technically speaking. Now, one other question while we're on it. Cal, it's always been my understanding, and I'm sure I read it, but is lot 13 zoned RT, residential tourist, or not?
Residential
Portion of it.
Yeah.
And
part of it's
Yeah.
conservation.
And part of it's
No,
conservation.
part of it
Agriculture.
zone
Conservation, that's zoned,
Yeah.
not, yeah.
Right. But the rest of it is RT, right?
I believe the majority of it is RT.
I think it's 40 and 10, or 40 and 9.
Something like
That's what they said in the appraisal report.
Right. Did
And that's
Tony, did you ever get to look into that? Did you have time to find out if that conservation easement is just a designated easement or legitimate?
The conservation zoning is conservation zoning.
It's not an
I've not yet had time to research whether there is a separate conservation easement on it.
Okay.
I'm doing that.
That's up to the board.
Yeah, go ahead. So I want,
I'm curious, do you not see a conflict where on the 13 acres, you're saying we can just sell them exactly how many ERCs that they require? But on the other properties that people own, they're going to pay for them no matter if they need them or not? Isn't that a contradiction?
Oh, let me ask you this. Do you expect if the ERC stayed on this parcel, we would have to distribute that expense to all owners? Then when it's sold, it can change again. So what are we yo-yoing around with assessments here? I don't want to do that. I think,
but we're not charging the community assessments there.
No, that's
no,
because
we lose about 350,000 a year. And if we continue to do that, we'll have to find a solution. We can't continue to do that.
But you'll never sell that property. Well, you'll sell yours because you have the luxury of taking them off. If I try to sell my property.
It's not a luxury of taking it on. Look how many years we collected nothing on it. At least we have the luxury of being able to sell it and recoup our money. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think when it's sold, what their intent is will help us decide about the ERCs. We might give them all back. We don't know that yet.
Depends on what wants to go in.
Okay, so the way the rules are set up for that, all right, we can do what we want with this because we own it.
That's correct.
That property that's over there, if he needed, seeing we have to go on somebody else's plan because that's what's originally there, we get a new plan from him or whoever owns those properties over there. They give us a plan that says that the engineer determines that they need 2 on one side and 5 on the other for a total of 7. The board can then say, fine, we agree to that and we're going to dump the other 13.
Currently, no.
We can't,
Right now, they
even
have
the
to
board
sell it.
can't do that. Even the board can.
Well, you could do that right now because you're in rulemaking and you can change those rules.
Gotta go through the process and change it.
Right. You're in the process. So.
So
and
right
this
now,
is
here's the-
for
okay, well-
ERCs.
Right now, we cannot do that. The board can't vote and say that we're going to take those 13 unused ERCs from that individual and they don't have to pay anymore. We can't do
Yes.
that.
Isn't it,
I,
if they want us, that's
Well,
right.
well, first of all, on the workshop, so you can't take action.
Right, no, I'm
But
not.
secondly, I think you'd have to amend the rules because we have a process for how we adjust the ERC.
Right.
It's already been allocated and.
But you said we have a process, and I got a note here that says there does not appear to be any formula for determining this.
for determining ERCs.
Yes.
No, I think the process is that we have,
The past.
talk about, developer comes in with a plan.
Yeah.
Say, hey, right now it's 13, but because your plan is something that doesn't take as much of an impact on the system, here's the ERC.
Yeah, you could sell the excess or we
No,
might
you-
take the excess back.
But you can't sell it. Oh, I mean, you could, but there's nobody that's
Right.
buying it
And
right now.
today there
That's
isn't.
it.
10 years ago there was. There's a rule, 4.34, which will be put into 5. And I mean, if you guys feel that you want, right now you're eating 266, 267 ERCs. If you want to adjust on vacant land, I think it's pretty clear on residential and marina properties. We're fine there. It's vacant land and commercial. And I looked at the initial ERC allocations. I'm not sure how they came up with them. I'm assuming that they used the engineer to determine what the utility loads there, just like today. But some of the rates are the same for O&M as they are for the utility, and some aren't. And I'm not sure what the distinction is between the two. The O&M is the one that I don't understand. But you guys, and Tony can help track, if you want to provide that opportunity on vacant land to relinquish, allow someone, if they come in with a plan and they show us what their needs are on their current plans, and you want to relinquish them, allow them to turn it back, that's your choice. You just got to change the rules.
All right, let's say we were to change the rule like that. They have to come before us with their plan. And that plan, it's, how can I put it? Is it, I'm trying to do this, Collier County won't let me do it, but I'm trying to do this, so take back these ERCs? Or is it at the point where you have your permit to move forward?
I think
Make
that's
that
your
I
decision,
think it
but
would be almost when they've got their permits in hand
Bingo.
or
Right,
something.
then you
because-
know it's gonna happen.
Because if not, what happens if they decide at the last minute, well, I'm not going to do it? We dropped the ERCs on it and lost that money.
And they never do it.
And they never do anything. So it had to be at the time the permit was issued for it, and we knew they were going forward with the project.
Or if it's a tract of land that's platted, or if a condominium declaration is filed, then you know
Yes.
what the use is, or if a site development plan is applied for Collier County. Because again, we go back to the county's going to request a letter of utilities liability.
Right.
And the only way the district will send that, I assume, is that David will do the calculation and say, yeah, based upon X number of VRCs, we will have the capacity to service this.
Well, what happens if we just go back to the standard and say when land goes vacant or goes for sale or whatever, goes to another person, why aren't we just going to 1 ERC per acre? No matter what it is.
What would be the rationale, I guess, that's the question.
Well, what's the risk?
It's platted, it's,
Well,
right?
Platted is part of it.
Right.
The other part, though, is you should have a methodology. You should have somebody come in here and look at what you want to accomplish with. You've got to be able to support your budget. So if you don't have debt, most of all of these were set up off of repayment of debt.
Okay.
Here's a question I've got. If we were to do that and be able to make the change and say, okay, we'll take them back if we want to do that. As soon as we do that, when we take it back, everybody else in the port is paying for that, what we take back. That's what we're doing.
Well,
So
you're not gonna
here's the
take that
question.
back.
Here's the question I have.
You're not gonna-
already have.
We're going
On 13
We're going
back.
for all of this for how many properties are we talking? How many
And how
properties are
much
we?
money? How much money are we
Yeah, we're
talking?
talking, there's 87,000, I think is what I heard last.
I think that was based on 50 ERCs if they were turned back.
But that's prep pack and all of those.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, I mean, you've got to be, whatever policy you come up with has to be consistent and has to be something that you're going to follow all the way through.
So how many properties are we talking about this affecting is what I want to know.
I think it's only going to affect, because we've already got those, it's going
That's
to affect us with the ability to sell that property, which we can't unless we do that. And it's going to affect that property now because it's going to be, it's going to change. Let them do whatever they want to do with it.
Right.
Okay, but I mean, do you think that that piece of property over there, vacant land, and I know you don't, nobody likes the words fair and equitable or everything, but that vacant land should be paying $40,000 a year to the CID?
What's it zoned for?
So
That's not the question. The question is, it's vacant right now. How are they possibly responsible for $40,000?
So how long do you let this ride if they decide to keep it as an investment and never develop?
Suppose they never develop it and they leave it like that with 5 ERCs, and then it's there for the whole community to do what they, just to wander around on.
the guy that owned it has owned it, what, 14 or 17 years, paid $395 for it, and has paid the $40,000 every year for the last 17 years.
Yeah, so the guy's not too bright.
He
Did
never
you pay
came to
$150
us and
bill?
said, we need to reduce that.
Right.
So
So that's what we need, another person that's gonna be not too bright, and just sit on that property.
What about vacant land on residential? You
What
think they're
happens-
not paying?
What, residential?
Yeah. I paid
Residential?
on mine.
Sure, I paid on mine too, and everything was there. The road was there, the infrastructure was there, so when I was ready to go, I could do it. That's not the case over there. There's not even fire hydrants over there. There's no roads in place. There's no hookups in place. There's nothing in place. Whereas I'm paying for something, the infrastructure that's already there. That guy and all these other places are paying for infrastructure that we're using, and they're not.
But they have it available to them. It's out in front of
Where
their,
is it?
it's in front of their property.
So then who has to pay for who pays for the road that, say you need a central artery, and who pays for that?
And
Developer.
where?
Developer.
The
Yeah, it's
developer
his
Have to pay for
property.
the improvements inside their property.
Access into your land is your.
Yeah, if you wanted 2 driveways into
Yeah.
your house, would you?
I didn't pay for the road I didn't pay for the road in front of me.
Right.
Well, they do have the road. in
What
front of
road?
us.
They have the
The
road
road in front of my house, I didn't pay for
Yeah,
that road.
that acreage, what road in front? It has 2 roads.
It's got 1 road, I think.
It's got road, but you've got 20 ERCs on there, so if you times that times 4, you got enough for 80 residential units paying for it right there. There's 80 residential.
Okay.
It just doesn't
If
make
you get it
sense.
permitted and build it for
Yeah.
80 units,
We don't know what they're gonna do out there.
Asking those questions. Stella Marsa, I believe they had to put in their own infrastructure.
Who?
Basic- The Stella Marsa developments, they had to put in their basic
And then
infrastructure.
they turn it over to the CID.
And now we're paying for their road to be fixed, $80,000 minimum.
No,
Yes.
That's because the district took those over.
Right.
They brought over.
But we
But
didn't take
they
over,
did the
we didn't
development.
take
We
over
can
all
put
their
it in.
infrastructure.
we take the completed project back.
Oh, okay, we're taking it back, and then we're gonna still spend 80 grand on it because it wasn't done right. Makes sense to me.
No, I don't think that's been resolved yet completely. because of
Well,
that
you guys said
contract.
we were gonna do it, we're just waiting for prices to come down.
And there is the thing that Tony's already looked into that said, we didn't take over the sewer system.
Right. That's their
The,
problem.
that's theirs,
Start.
the storm sewer.
Yeah.
That's not the matter.
Russ?
It's still a great question.
Okay.
Go ahead, next question.
What I've been trying to get at for months now is how the ERCs, those 10 on each of that property, were put onto those properties, because one property is twice as big as the other property. There, to put in a legal special assessment to pay for that water treatment plant, there had to be a methodology, there had to be a study, there had to be something. I'm not getting anything to tell me that those ERCs were correctly attached to that landing. And if you don't have those records or you can't produce them, you can't defend that in a court of law. Am I wrong?
Well, it's been defended on at
Well,
least 2 times.
let's just put it this way.
Yeah.
My understanding, I wasn't, I don't have all the records, is that there was a borrowing and a validation of the borrow for the utility system.
Yes.
And typically, when you do a validation, you validate the project, and the assessment methodology, and the assessment. It's all validated. And that validation decision by the court, once the appeal time runs, it's good forever. So that process was validated. I haven't retrieved all of the documents, and I believe it was a.
I looked at the bond document, there's what was assigned.
So my question is then, that property over there should have a plan. Where's the plan for that
You don't have to
property?
have a plan to assign ERCs.
Yeah.
No, if there's
No, you said a developer comes in and buys a property, and they hand you a thing, you determine the ERCs in the property. So where's the
No,
plan
the
for?
ERCs
That was
are
done
there
from the
now.
original development.
The original time.
This is from that,
Original land plan.
that land plan is from 1990?
At least
Yes.
not before.
I think it's 1986.
I'm looking at
What I read.
the 1990 resolution that y'all have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fine,
it's actually earlier than 1990.
The methodology.
Right, right.
Well, somewhere there's methodology because it had to be validated.
So we
I'm
need,
looking at 1999 resolution,
So we need to
1990 resolutions that assign units to properties and included both the roadway and utilities and water management costs to that. And then you have the resolutions that address the hearings that took place and the equalization hearing, which includes the assessment goal. The assessment goal includes the allocation of the ERC or the units at that time.
I think,
I think the key is,
Rhonda
as opposed to-
Archer prepared whatever, but I haven't seen how he came up with allocations.
I would suggest,
saw
again,
the
we talked
index.
about this before. I would suggest you hire somebody to evaluate your assessment approach today and make a recommendation of continuing with it or changing it. I think that's ultimately we need, as opposed to discussing this in a generalized way each and every time. The results, nobody is totally happy with those. Some go up, some go down. And that's what happens when you go look, you're looking at, my example lately is Gateway. Gail was manager there for a while. Gateway decided this past 2 years ago that the methodology they've been using since 1986, that was validated by the courts many, many times, was needed to be looked at and refreshed. So they did. They looked at it and a whole new approach. And they hired a consultant, and we talked about it casually, who came in as a third party and said, here's what I recommend. You know, I can sustain your current approach if you want to, but I recommend a new approach. Either one is valid or kosher. And the board Gateway decided for one part of Pelican, one part of Gateway, they brought a whole new methodology. The other part, they kept it the same for the reasons. That, I think, is ultimately what the board needs.
I think you need it for the O and M. The utilities is a pretty good
Yeah, I
process
think you're right.
right now. It's because you're determining based on engineering and facts. I think you guys need to decide if you're going to, make any changes to that transfer of the, ERCs. Because right now it sticks with the property and it has to get accepted. So then you guys accepted all of the ERCs on parcel 13. That went into your coffer. There were some others before that, undevelopable property that had ERCs assigned to them. So once you decide what you have there, I think you need, and the other part of it is anything has to be defensible. Now, obviously, what was presented in 1990 and 2010, both of those were defensible. They were at the court and, the judge upheld the valuation. Now, I don't think he got into a position where he's determining that you can't, on vacant land, you can't drop ERCs. I don't think that's part of the process. He just, was it fair and equitable, what he assigned at that time, and the process was accepted or validated by the judge. Am I right, Tony?
Yes, and again, once it's validated, there's no appeal, then that's it.
Yeah. It's, and the other part of that is you need to decide if you want to, how you want to charge for the overhead and capital improvements. Right now, you're pretty much covering whatever isn't taken in by fees, then the rest of it goes into overhead and capital improvements, and that's the bulk of your budget, which becomes what you charge per ERC. But the amount of the ERCs is fair and it's equitable for utilities. I have no idea what they do for the general fund. And they're not consistent. It looked like they intended it, whatever was number of ERCs for utilities was the same number of ERCs for O&M. But we've got the tax rolls, it's assigned by parcel.
In the residential, probably are 1 for 1.
Yes.
It's, in the multifamily, it could be, let's say,
It's
proration, per se.
0.8 for O&M or for operating and a full 1. All residential and all marina properties are equal to each other. So hotel rooms, condos, single family, all pay 1 full ERC for O&M. And then 1 or 0.8 or 0.4 for residential.
But I think what he's looking for is the clarification on, what do you have, 20 ERCs?
Right.
Why did he get 20? Not the amount so much, but why did he get 20?
The original developer
Sign that.
signed that. That's
What I think.
yeah.
But did that not have to be done with a methodology? I mean,
There probably was some type of methodology. Can we put our fingers on it? Okay, not at this point, but
I don't think it was the original methodology. I think it was that parcel.
right, so in my mind, it wasn't.
Let's say you come to us with plans and whatever, it's determined you only need 5 of them.
Uh-huh.
Then you sell, the new owner has 5 and can't get more. And he's gonna come here and say, why can't I get more? So it's what happened at that time, what was assigned.
It could be what they had originally in the plan for what they thought that land was going to.
Well, that's what I want to see.
Can't tell me what that was.
That's what I want to see.
Can't tell me what that was.
Well, Ron said when he was still here, he said the guy planned on is someone from California. What the material I gave you, the last, I don't know, 10 pages, it's the development plan and zoning. And I think
That had a lot to do.
that identified how the community was being proposed.
Yeah.
I don't think it went into, I didn't say anything about specific sites, but it's a pretty good history on how everything came together.
And it was interesting, right?
Yeah,
Very interesting.
Okay, but that was then, this is now.
so, yeah,
But now all we're saying is until, we're gonna change this or whatever, all we're saying right now, if we had the plans, it'd be easier to see what we're trying to do to help the landowner out and whether we can take some back or
well,
not.
if you guys want
Plus, we
to,
have to change the
Yeah.
rule
if
to
you,
allow us to do that now. 'Cause we
and
can't
if
do
you
that.
guys as a group, because no one person can decide it, no two people can decide it. It has to be at a public meeting and it has to be at least 3 board members that agree to it. If you want to assign ERCs by permitted development that David confirms, I think we still need O&M, but David confirms, and if there's excess, that you allow those to be turned back in. Because the rules right now don't state that. And then every year we go through the budget, we just have to figure out what we're going to charge per ERC to be able to generate the money you need to support that budget.
The rules do
You
not-
can say that and do it. The rules don't say
do
it.
not say we have the option to take them back.
It doesn't.
No, and let me maybe throw this out. Bigger utilities like Collier County and so forth, they don't make an assignment, a pre-assignment of ERCs on the properties. When you get ready to develop it, you come in with the plan, and then you purchase the necessary ERCs to develop your property. Now, if we did an approach like that, you might open it up to say, anybody who wants to basically give or sell ERCs to the utility, you've got this time frame to do it. Otherwise, you hang on to what you currently own.
Right.
And later on, if the value of that ERC goes from, I'm just going to use round numbers, 5,000 to 10,000, you will pay the extra cost to acquire those extra ERCs.
Right.
There should be some charge for vacant property because you're reserving the right to that sewer system, that water system. Whatever you come up with, I mean, it doesn't have to be based on plans that he tells you what you're gonna need for a hotel or a gas station or whatever. It could be based on, as Russ has suggested, one or commented on it.
Yeah, no, I think
One
that's
rate.
something like that. Yeah.
So you could do that, and because what we would do is create a standby fee for utilities that would, then they're paying into the system, and you could do it 1 per half acre, whatever formula you wanted.
We said the county was 1 per acre.
That's just, I didn't say the county yet. I said that what I see is generally for O&M until lots are subdivided and they're platted, is 1 per acre or 1 per platted lot. That's typically what I see. That's a new developments.
Now, here's the question I have. In Steve's lot over there, since it was platted, they've changed what, an acre to conservation utility?
Conservation and utilities.
Okay, so they actually removed an acre from his ability to use it. But that was never changed in the ERCs. In other words, now he only has 4 acres that he's able to deal with, not the full 5 that they base the 4 per ERC. So would not we be allowed to say, we'll take back 4 ERCs simply because it's now in conservation, you can't do anything with it?
Sure.
But we'd have to have a rules change to be able to do that, correct?
Well, the original developer who platted that entire area, he had to set that aside as conservation easement as part of the platting process. So that's always was a known factor for that developer when that happened, that he knew he was losing that acreage on that parcel.
Yeah, I did that once. I had to plat so much for conservation. So
It wasn't like somebody just took it out of the sky. It was something the developer had full knowledge of.
So
But what happened, it doesn't meet that You know, if it was 5 acres and they were doing four ERCs per acre, that's 20 ERCs. So they knew that there was an acre taken out right off the bat because of
That's why we
the,
want to see what the
Only
development
if
plot was. We have no idea.
came with the plans.
But see though, when that happened, if he was able to use those extra ERCs someplace else in that overall development, he could have used it elsewhere.
Cal, could I say something? I think we're missing something here. We have to go back 30 years to 1990 or thereabouts. And I think at that time, first of all, I know for a fact there was more than one developer. There's been multiple developers that developed Port of the Islands, multiple. That's why each of the condo buildings are separate, different associations. Now, having said that, I think at that time, you'll find that the ERCs were a plus. They had a value to them because the more ERCs you had, the more flexibility you had with that property. That was then, this is now, but that's how it came about. And it was an attraction. So the developer interested in that piece that Steve's got must have wanted to do something with it. And he thought the ERCs were going to be a plus to him. Now, having said that, on a separate note, we've bounced around a couple things, and I would understand Steve's frustration. Just today, we mentioned that ERCs can be sold, and yet at the last meeting, it came out that could not be done. We need on his behalf, to find out as a resolution, can he sell any ERCs he doesn't need? Can he sell them? And personally, I see no reason why he can't. That guarantees that those ERCs continue to pay us the money we need, no matter who owns them. And he can relieve himself of the ERCs he doesn't need. Taking them back is going to make things a lot more complicated, but he does have to have some sort of a relief. And I think the relief would be the ability to sell them. And we've said both things. So we need to get that straightened out.
Ray, I think we always said you can sell
No, we didn't. We didn't.
them. We just said we couldn't buy them back.
Well,
See,
No, oh, it says in our rules that they can't sell until
Right.
we've sold all of ours. So that rule
Right.
piece needs to change.
Right. And if Gary, if you ask Steve right now, if you ask him what his perception is, I believe he believes he can't sell them.
on page 40, procedure to transfer ERCs between parcels under separate ownership. That's where the language comes up. Once all district-owned ERCs have been sold, the owner of any tax parcel subject to the assessment of ERCs shall make application to the district to sever all or any portion of the ERCs from the tax parcel and transfer ERCs to other tax parcels. So districts got first right to sell their ERCs.
Yes.
But then he can sell them?
Once the district gets rid of their ERCs, yes.
What
So
if
no-
we don't get rid of them, but he'd still like to sell them?
We'd have to change the rule. I guess the question is, I think it'd be helpful to go back to when that was adopted back in November of 2000 and find out what the discussion was.
Yeah.
It looks like that's when it was adopted.
The situation then was that the board had just accepted ERCs that were on undevelopable lots.
But what I'm saying is,
And
if we-
so they had an excess, and so they said they wanted to make sure that they sold theirs before any first, and so that's why the rule was changed.
yeah, I think it'd be helpful to have those minutes for everybody's edification as to why the rationale and whether or not that rationale still applies. I think that's what the board is saying.
do we really have someone out there that wants to purchase the ERCs? That's what I'm saying. Because it doesn't make any difference whether we change that rule and say you can sell them if there is no one who's willing to buy them.
Right.
But Sunstream might, the people in the back might, There's,
So
you know, but at least it's an option for him.
to whoever they will buy them, they can't sell them,
Sure.
but they will sell
But at least it's an option. He has a relief factor in there. Right now, he's looking at this like nobody made him buy it, and he bought it knowing the ERCs were there. And he doesn't like hearing no. I don't either. I get it. And he doesn't have a need for them. I get that. Right now, he's banging his head against the wall that we've created, not us, but the original board. So we need to give him a vent. If he can sell his ERCs, everybody's satisfied. Everybody wins a little.
How many ERCs does he want to sell? He's never said, he's never brought plans. You know, he keeps tying our hands. It doesn't help make a decision if you don't know all the facts.
them. And we're looking at rules on how you're going to manage the district throughout, and you shouldn't be focusing on one individual.
Well, it's
I
a sample.
agree, but it's gonna involve all of them no matter what we do. That's the thing. So think about this. If we tell anybody it involves from the beginning, if you've got ERCs that you don't want, you can sell them. They have a relief, okay? And we don't lose any money. Let them
But then
sell
you
them.
say, right now, you're saying nobody's out there to buy them because we're at the
I'm
end.
not saying that. I think there are. I think Sunstream's gonna need them. We don't know who's gonna go in the back. Here's the big problem, and listen,
Right now, could you sell them right now, Ray?
why does it have to be right now? It could be next week. It could be next month.
Yeah, but
It
right
doesn't
now,
have to be right now.
if you don't have a buyer, you don't have a buyer. So do we?
That's right now. But he could sell them at some point. He doesn't need to sell them tomorrow. He'd like to maybe. And we don't know if there's a buyer or not. We don't know that.
And right now is our time to make this rule change. So when, say, Sunstream does sell that property and they do want to put the high rise in and they do need more ERCs, Steve would be able to sell to them if we just change that rule.
And regardless, whoever buys them continues to pay the CID, the community, the district, the same money. So there's no loss of income to us. Everybody wins.
Well, I agree that we, you know, the idea of giving them the right to sell them is a good idea and needs to be done.
Yeah.
I think that's going to help Steve out anytime in the near future. And that's what I think is his concern, is that he's not going to be able to do it anytime in the near future. So, you know, yes, this is a long-term solution that when something else happens, we have the ability to sell our ERCs back and forth between, you know, people that want to buy it. I don't have a problem with that, but it doesn't change his situation. Not that, you know, that situation needs to change. Like I said before, you know, 17 years of people paying the taxes on it. And then, so, you know, I think we could change that. And I agree with that.
And here's the other variable. The way it's worded, we get like right of first refusal to sell ours first. Well, so who cares? We don't even know how many we've got if we're honest. The number of ERCs floating around are a wild card, and they have been for years. What happened to the ERCs from the North Hotel? Nobody knows. What happened to the ERCs from Sam Marchant's trailer park? Nobody knows. What happens to all the wild card ERCs that Shugart had? Nobody knows. If we're honest about it, nobody really knows. Okay? There is no proof of how many ERCs are really there. So why not let them sell them?
Ray, there's a schedule that we've been provided that says how many ERCs, the total amount, and how they're allocated. And
Right, that's the total amount and how they're allocated.
the entire county tax records to make sure we were billing for all those used ERCs, and we are. So
Right.
we haven't lost anything. That record, I believe, is very accurate. How many are available that we own?
How many are available?
266.98.
166.
266.
Oh, 266.
But Terry, the problem is, over the past 10 years, that has been a wild card, okay? I mean, they've
So,
got swept under the carpet all over the place.
no, it's always been so many ERCs divided by residents, and that's how you come up with what you're paying.
Right.
according to
Okay.
schedule. We haven't changed that
But it's
total.
who owns them is what I'm getting at. It's
We're
who owns,
billing, do I care who owns them?
no?
You bill me
So
for
there you
mine,
go.
sold it,
We've always have had
you're on
1,000,
the tax roll.
we've always had 1,032.6 ERCs.
And I've always seen that number.
But it's
Okay.
who, but what happened to the ones from the North Hotel?
They-
Where'd they go?
Custer
They're-
County has them,
Who?
The county.
because they
Well,
own that
were-
property.
Basically, they were eliminated,
Yeah,
but
Okay, that's two different things. The county has them or they were eliminated.
6.
it's in, we have it back because they don't have to pay tax, they're government.
You see what I mean? So
No,
if,
I don't see what you mean. I think you're very wrong. I think we've accounted for all these ERCs. We haven't
okay, but you're
lost.
getting hung up on the total. What I'm getting at is who owns what? How many does Sunstream have? What happened to the ones from Bruce Holacek? What happened to the ones from the North Hotel? You know,
Ray, why does that matter? If I have 1,000 and I can account for the 1,000, and of that 1,000, what I don't own, I can prove are being billed as an assessment on the tax roll.
right, that's fine, until we go to sell
We know what Sunstream's got under their control as far as the hotel, the restaurant seats and bar seats. Then they also have 33 in reserve.
them. Right.
But they
And how
pay-
many do they need for the land they've got for sale? 155 units. They've got 33. They're advertising 155 possible units. Let's say
Well,
they're condos.
They have to buy some from us.
Yeah, they'd have to buy, they'd
Or
have
they
to come
can
back
buy
to
them
us
from
and buy
Steve.
them.
Okay,
Or they can
okay.
buy them from Steve.
All right, but let's get back to the rule changes, Tony, that we need to do in order to make it so that it's up to the boards to.
No. Sorry.
That's all right. If we get in Steve's case, if he gives us a plan, we can adjust the ERCs. And the other rule change is for the vacant land that we have in the back. Are we gonna make it, change it to 1 ERC per acre for the time being? So if anybody buys it, it'll be 1 ERC per acre.
No,
I think it's two different.
Yeah.
aspects.
Well, I know, this is two different
Right.
rule changes.
Well, the first one I don't think is necessary. I think the rule already provides, when it comes to a plan, give it to the engineer. And
Yeah, you have that opportunity right
I
now.
think it's already
We,
there.
no, wait a minute, we just had the discussion and you just told me we didn't have the ability
No.
to vote that he only needs 7 or 10
Right.
instead of 20.
But he still he still has.
No, I think
That's
that's, we don't have no basis to just arbitrarily
Yeah.
say that. The basis is he comes to us with their plan.
Can't do it word of mouth.
I think we've been saying
No, I
all
get that.
along. Example, he goes to the county, applies for a site development plan or a plat. Then Dave, the copy goes to Dave and he will calculate what are the actual ERCs, correct?
Okay, and it
So
comes
the
back,
rule-
and it comes back 10. And he's still got that other 10. What happens to the other 10?
That's the rule we
That you
need
have to
to
change.
change.
That's what I'm saying. That's the rule we have to change.
That would be in the transfer.
The access 10, I'll call
Yes.
Yeah, whatever excess ERCs are available on a
I
property.
think you need,
after it's
I think you need both rule changes.
Mhm.
The one,
Right,
one
both
that,
of them.
yeah, you're gonna need one that allows people to sell them if at any time it becomes available for people to
So
sell
no,
them.
that's 3 rule changes.
No, if people are allowed to sell them, is that with board approval?
I suggest you need to keep track of it.
Yeah.
So you need to sell them, you need to be able to bring them to the board and the board says, we'll take them back.
Right.
That's the second rule. What's the third rule
The
change?
third rule, do we have to do we have the option to sell ours first before,
We still, that's what we have now.
That's what it says
Yeah.
now.
so we keep that one? But then how does the landowner sell theirs
Yeah,
to
no.
another
We
landowner?
gotta dump that. That's what
Yeah,
I mean.
but we're pretty much gonna hold all available ERCs through this. So they would have to come to us to buy it.
We would
We
only-
hold every vacant ERC that's not used is ours,
Right.
Right.
except for the 33 that Sunstream has.
Now,
It held in
they
ex-
could- they
in
could
reserve.
They could come to you and say, we don't need these 33
Yeah.
anymore also.
But we
That's
also
right.
have to come up with a,
Right now, we couldn't take them if we wanted to because we need the rule change to take them in.
Correct.
but we also need to come up with what those ERCs are gonna be worth if they turn them in, because we're gonna charge more, because these ERC prices were developed at, how many years ago?
Are you suggesting that we buy them from?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
but when we go to sell them, when we have that
So,
opportunity.
yeah,
It's a
there's a
stated-
price that was set.
There's a price of $4,600,
Which was-
plus or minus, but that was based upon the 2010 bond
Yeah.
issuance.
So everything's at least doubled by that.
Right. There needs to be an evaluation of
Yeah,
that.
one of the
Right.
things we need to look at too, and it's, it gets into the fact that you have ERCs for utility and ERCs for all the general fund stuff. And at the end of the section, we need clarification. This gets back to the revised assessment methodology I would suggest. At the bottom of page 45, of the rules in section 4.35, this we get to all the fucking numbers. 4.
What page?
5.
45.
Page 45, it's not the first, I printed out. It's 5, and it says, the sentence, whether a property utilizes, there we go. This rule and the determination of utility capacity is not intended to and does not affect the number of ERCs assigned to a property for purposes of allocating operation and maintenance expenses, or the apportionment of the duty to pay any non-ad valorem special assessments, O&M, or debt. Whether a property utilizes all the utility capacity assigned to the property or not, which is all the activity ahead of time, we reduce ERCs based upon actual use of utility ERCs. It says it will continue to be subject to the same level of non-ad valorem assessment, like it's something like general fund, unless and until a transfer of ERCs is made from one property to the other, and the district's board of supervisors accept amended methodology reapportioning the duty to pay the assessments.
What, wait a minute, would you run that over again? Where, what exactly, what,
Okay, I printed this out on the district website, rules of procedure.
yeah,
And my first page says 1 on it.
But what line, what
Page
number? is it?
45.
I have page 45 on mine.
Yeah, maybe different than the one that
It's
you got.
not reading, not what I'm
Maybe look
reading.
at 44.
No, what you have there should be, it's right off the website.
Well, mine printed out page 1, the first page. Is there a 5?
oh, it's on 44.
44, there will be.
The allocation of utility service.
No.
Right, and but the part he's talking about is
No,
45.
actually, it's on 46.
There you go.
No, maybe not. Hang on a second. 4.35.
What number is it though? That'll tell us the index number. Is it 4.36 or?
Let's see here. This is what I printed.
We're on, this is 6.0,
No, mine's under 4.35.
4 point what?
4.35, this is going to be
It's
back
earlier.
further.
Yeah,
There you go.
page 38.
Why the number is on?
Page 38.
3,
4.35.
4.35 is 38.
Here we go.
Yeah, ask a question.
Bear with me, if you could, it's on page,
Look at the bottom, Tony.
that's where I am.
Go back, you're going forward.
Yeah, let's see, under separate owners. Oh, here we go.
Didn't it appear?
No,
It might be out of sequence. It
Oh,
it starts on
transportation of
page
equivalent
43.
residential. Is this it here?
let me just.
It's a policy for determination of utility
Yeah, it goes to-
availability. So for page 43, 44, and 45.
That's it. He was reading.
It doesn't follow the section number.
Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, here we go now.
I wanted to talk about what Terry said, about me giving you a plan. And what, I have gotten a plan for east side because I'm supposed to have a pre-application meeting next week. And so this, I will go through it with the county to know exactly what I have to do and what I can do.
Looked up to me, right here, 6.
But
Okay.
what's holding me back on this is I'm waiting to find out how you guys are going to handle the ERCs on this, because that's going to directly affect what I'm going to put on that land.
Right.
Because if I'm paying $40,000, I'm not going to build that out. I have a fellow who wants to buy the west side. And he wants to put a gas station in. Nobody wants a gas station, but what I'm getting at is if, like the east side, if I don't have to pay that kind of money, I'll put one 50 by 100 building in there more than likely, and that'll be it. Low impact for everybody. The same thing on the west side. I've been looking at, I might be able to tie boats next to the seawall, which will dang near cover if I had 3 ERCs on there and so forth.
It's like your wish. It's
No.
like your wish what you want to do. You don't have anything saying you can do what you want to do. Like, can you put slips in there? That's the state
that-
or the
that's not-
environmentalist?
That's not his point. His point is if he's gonna have to keep the 20 no matter what, then he's gonna have to build the density. Because that's why he can't give you a plan. If he gives you a plan for 4 units and you still say, well, you still owe me for 16, then that doesn't make any business sense. So he would have to increase the density and give you a plan that's gonna incorporate the 20, because he's not gonna try and sell them. You follow me? So if we tell him no matter what, he's got 20 units, then he's gotta build the density to 20. If we tell him he can reduce it to 1 per acre, then he's gonna build to that density, because that way he's covered. That's the business sense of it. So he can't really give you a plan until he understands what we're doing at our level. Are we gonna let him dissolve 10 to 15 ERCs, or are we not gonna let him do it? Then he can give you a plan.
But if you have
It's a promise.
just vacant land or maybe one house on all that 6 acres, however, but what if there's a car wash? That's why you have to have some indication of how many toilets. how many
But then
square feet.
he would need the 20, then he'd have to buy it.
Right.
Right,
It seems to me-
but we have to charge it up
But are they-
front.
It seems to me like you're putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
Here's normally when somebody buys a piece of property, in the back of their mind, they're going, I'm going to do this to this piece of property, because this piece of property is going to cost me $40,000 a year in taxes right now. If no one changes that, I'm still paying $40,000 a year in taxes. You buy the property with a plan in the back of your mind. You don't buy the property and say, now I'll figure out a plan later on. And by the way, I want to reduce the ERCs on it, so I'm not paying as much taxes. That doesn't make sense to me.
To me, it didn't make sense, because it didn't make sense that that somebody could have a plan and we would sell, okay, that plan is great. You only need 5 ERCs, but by the way, you're still paying 20.
Well, the rule change would be, we can say
Well,
we can sell them, or
Well,
we
that's
can
what
buy
we
them.
that's what we have to get to. We have to get to that point.
Right, but he has
So-
to understand, if he dribbles it down to the minute
No,
amount, and then he
but-
wants more.
He can do whatever he
Then what
wants,
does he
but
want the
as
board to
long
do?
as we have set rules that we can take these back or not, we can still vote not to.
Exactly. I mean,
Okay.
I don't have a problem with the rules change that
What
says
would that
the
be
board can take them
times,
back,
Right.
but the board can also vote not to take them back.
I
And then-
agree, yeah, it's fine.
I don't have a
I
problem with
just want
that.
that ability to be there. So we're talking about the same rule change.
Yeah, and for clarification, Cal and Dave also, it's page 46, at the bottom of number 6. That's where it talks about even if there's an adjustment for the ERC, allocation is to utility ERC, it doesn't change the O&M ERC allocation unless there's a methodology. I think that's the bottom.
Yes, well, it's in the middle, number six.
Okay, so I'm, he does whatever he wants. I don't care as long as we have the ability to make that change. Well, right now we don't.
Right, I think, as I said, I think we need two rule changes. Number one, like Ray said, the ability to sell the ERCs, take out the portion that says that we have to sell ours first before you could sell them. That we, that, take that out and just say they have the right to sell the ERCs if they have somebody who wants, but with permission of.
From the board.
From the board. I agree with that. And the second one is the board has the right to take back ERCs if they so desire.
We won't pay for them, we're just taking them.
That's correct. We just take them back.
Can I say two things? One, we don't want them back, okay? Every one of those we take back, we're losing money. Everyone that's sitting in limbo, we're losing money. We don't want ERCs. We don't want them. Now, let me drive a point home on Steve's behalf because I do understand his frustration. Right now, as we're sitting here, the Sunstream has the west land for sale and they're advertising 155 units. Now, let's just for a moment, hypothetically, assume that's 155 ERCs. Now, Zeman wanted, and the other guy, I think, but Zeman wanted to put in 300 slabs for RVs. They needed 120 ERCs. That did not include outbuildings, restrooms, the main building. It didn't include any of the infrastructure. So that's 275 ERCs. We've got 266 from what you told me. There's a deficit right there, right now.
So then you're making the point that we should take Steve's ERCs if he gives them up, then we'd have enough.
No, I'm not. We can't take them back. Forget that idea. We let him sell them though. Let him sell them whenever he wants, okay? And don't get in front of him. Don't get in his way. We're not in the real estate business. The CID board wants 0 ERCs. We don't want them.
Well, that's what we're saying.
We're saying we
Give
still
him
have
the option, he can sell it.
Right. Let him sell them. We don't want them back.
Or it's just an option. He can give it back to us.
That's right.
If we vote on it.
That's an option. And I think we've already said that
But Russ,
he has the right to either take them back or not take them back.
Okay, yes, worded like that, it's fine. But Russ, we don't want them back, period.
No, we realize
Yeah,
that.
that's because they're such a great option. You don't want them back because they're such a great thing for our CID. See,
Nobody said they're great. They cost money. They're a cost of doing business. I never said they were great. I said they were great 30 years ago.
30 years ago, they weren't $1,700 in ERC.
Well, that's something to be left. Yeah.
All right, so we're saying the option to sell your ERCs and
Approved by the board, right?
approved by the board,
Right.
and the board does no longer has the option to sell all their ERCs before a landowner can sell theirs.
That's correct, right?
If somebody wants them, to be honest, they can come to us, okay? I mean, nobody's stopping them from coming to us, and we're the path of least resistance. He's gonna have to market them. We are where people are gonna go looking for ERCs. But right now, we've got the potential need, we have a deficit of ERCs if those two projects move forward.
We don't know till we see a project.
You're exactly right. And
where's
I'm
it-
all,
Can I come up with more ERCs based on our
The
capacity?
plant.
Well, that 1,032 is capacity.
That's all. That puts us at full capacity. I thought we were at 50% according to Mitch.
Well,
We're at
that's
50% right
on
now.
calculations.
Right.
You're 50% as far as the water you produce or treat,
Right.
okay? But based on the science that Dr. David will apply when he
Yeah.
applies things. You need 1,032.
That's what the original,
But the plan isn't original either.
right,
The plan is upgraded since the original.
when it was established that there was going to be 1,032.6 ERCs,
That was
then
based
that
on
was
500
translated into
NDD.
making sure the plant had those capacities.
Right. But we're beyond that now.
Yeah, you know what happens? You come in and you want many more, then you add on to our water plant.
Right.
Thank you for
At some
that.
point, we have the need to exceed that 1,032. That's when we would need to do an expansion and step.
Oh, so confusing. You said we're
We're designed for 1,032.
original.
Original.
But
Now,
we've upgraded the plan.
no, it's 1,032.
You've upgraded as
Kept
far
it at
as newness,
Yeah, units, yes.
All right.
but it's
But
not
capacity is still.
capacity.
Not as far as capacity.
Okay, all right, so back to the rule changes. We're definitely gonna do those 2 rule changes. Mr. Attorney,
I got
Let's
the
hear
number.
them again.
could you repeat them for Ray?
Yeah, let's hear them. Because there's been a lot of verbiage.
Property owner has the option to sell the ERCs, and has to be approved by the board and remove the restriction on no sale of ERCs as long as the CID owns its ERCs. The board
Right.
has the option to either take them back or not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what about the rule change to affect the price of future ERCs that are sold? What is the, do we need a rule change for that, or?
I
You
would
can put
suggest-
that in the fee schedule.
Yeah, I think we may have to take that, in particular, that paragraph out of the rules as it is right now and make a reference to whatever the prevailing rate of the ERC is.
Right.
You can say.
The market will determine that.
Well, it's a number that's got to be.
The basis for the ERC payment is to pay for the capital cost of the expansion.
Right,
Plan, correct? Correct. So
right.
that, in essence, it's almost like an equivalent, it's like an impact.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay,
that's what it is.
so again, that number is already there today as to what it costs to expand the plant, that capital cost.
Yeah.
And
The
Which
plant is
is
the same.
4,000 plus or minus. Do you want to make it smaller?
Oh,
Do you
no.
want to make it more?
Well,
Now, that was based upon the debt service obligation underneath the 2010 bonds.
okay,
So we need to evaluate that to find out what the current cost of
Yeah,
it would be.
because
I'm not sure the best way. to approach
indirectly, the
that.
bonds continued on with that, the debt that I was involved with.
Yeah, I think you
But
take
now
the
that
budget
debt is
and
paid
add
off, I think.
depreciation to it.
Might stay the same, if that's paid off.
Well,
Well, but you got depreciation.
Well,
Yeah.
well, part of it too is you did not recoup some of that money because of people not paying it. We need to try to factor in the
Right,
recouping of that dollars that weren't paid,
about $1 million.
that we forgo.
Well,
We had,
it was paid though.
well, the debt eventually, but
It was just paid by everybody, the rest of the community.
Right, so those ERCs that didn't pay,
well, I'm not sure how you can now allocate, put that among others because some other party didn't pay.
Right.
Right,
From the standpoint of the
there's no
dual
debt.
rational nexus test that's needed for an impact fee or connection, I didn't look at that. I'd be kind of hesitant to say that.
I got a question for you. It's kind of history. I know you're not gonna probably be able to answer this. But when I bought my property, I paid my ERCs off in advance because I paid them off right away. Guess what? Everything got paid off. Whoop. The other rest of the people didn't have to pay, even though they owed money still. They stopped it. The board must have voted on that, right? Even though I had paid the full amount, so I didn't have to pay interest, everybody else didn't pay.
So some of the debt service assessment was forgiven.
The
Yes.
remaining debt was low and the board decided to pay it off back when they were flush.
From general fund or,
I think it came out of the utility fund.
so there's,
I'm not sure if it was general or whatever, but it was paid off.
Yeah. Nice, huh?
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Okay. Okay, I want to get back to one other thing. You said the utility rates and everything, or the utility ERCs, which is what we're talking about now, right? Now, the first thing on this county thing that you gave me here, where there's just water rates. Collier County uses water and sewer user rates to recover system operation, maintenance, renewal, enhancement, replacement, and debt service from system users. Everything's covered. Why don't we do that?
Because you decided to do it, the previous boards decided to do it a different way.
Okay, but how would that affect ERCs if we went to something like that? Does that eliminate ERCs? Or do you
No,
bring in?
They wouldn't, you'd still have ERCs for the drainage and road landscaping and.
Right, no, I know, but what about the utility ERC? That's the big one.
For the utility.
If you want to go to a totally enterprise fund contract, which is what you're talking about, you could do that.
Yes. You establish yourself a water and wastewater and also an irrigation rate. Typically, there are two components in each rate. One would be your base rate, that basic, the amount that it takes to have that basic system.
Yeah, I got it there in the market bill.
And then you don't have a consumption rate.
Right.
And the amounts would be different. And basically, your base rate would be what your annual assessments are today for utilities.
But then my point is, we have these ERCs floating around out there that everybody has. So if we change to something like that, what's the value of an ERC? Do they still have to?
The value of the cost per ERC would go down because you're shifting the expenses to
Onto
a
the
different
community,
source.
right? So
Well,
that,
it's on the community now.
yeah, but it would even be more so if.
But the water bills would go up substantially.
So it wouldn't be
ERC
on
would only
the
apply to
lot, is what you're saying.
Right. Well, you wouldn't be collecting anything off of it.
The
Right,
ERC,
so we lose money.
well, the ERC.
Well,
would-
no, it's just,
No, it would just be a shifting. The ERC would only apply to new construction. Because you take the ERCs basically, and I guess you take all the ERCs back, and then as people come in to develop, then you'd sell them to them to cover
Right, but so you
the
sell
cost
them.
of the plant.
so
I don't
basically,
know if you really sell them. I think what you have is you have connection fees.
Yeah, it is an entirely different way of
Absolutely.
charging. for
so that's my
your
point.
utilities.
But then that would change. That's why I don't think, I brought that up because I don't think we can really do it. That was my point.
You do it, but it'll
Well,
be.
I think
It'd be a
David
nightmare.
ran some numbers.
Yeah.
It's like every month it'd be an additional $132, something like that, if you took the assessment charge off.
Yeah, what I
Right.
did was took the annual assessment, divided it by 12.
Yeah.
And then looked at what an average consumption bill was going to be. And the cost of that was going to be very similar to what a typical bill in Cuyer and Marco Island would be. You'd be up in that upper range.
Right. Where I've got that.
But you'd have to come up with different rates. I mean, you shouldn't have, if that extra charge is $132 per unit, how is that fair with the South Hotel? You know, so you need some type of a commercial rate, you would need some type of.
Well, that's, I wanted to bring up what kind of logistical nightmare that would be.
Yeah,
It
That's,
would be.
The old expression is if it ain't broke,
Yeah.
don't
it's
fix
not-
it.
but that's,
It works out the same
The
way.
boards, the rationale was that most of the people wanted to be able to pay the bulk of their sewer and water bill on their taxes, and probably because they're deducting it or used to deduct it.
right.
Great, my space speaks to that. Now, from what I'm seeing is we're keeping our water rates low because the utility assessments are subsidizing that. You're taking, if you go through your budget and you've got everything that has to do with water, sewer, and irrigation, and it all gets thrown into this one pot, and then it's divided out over the ERCs. That's how you came up with $1,700 or whatever. But when you're doing that, you're telling basically the person who's not using any water, like that vacant land there, he's paying to subsidize the usage of the water. Am I wrong?
Well, I'm not sure that's the case. I haven't looked in detail at the numbers, how the allocation is between the assessment and what the consumption rate is. But in a perfect world, your basic cost of operating the utility, you got to have certain plant staff there, no matter how many gallons you produce a day. That would go underneath your base rate, your annual assessment. And then the cost as far as chemicals, pumping the water out of the wells, what electricity it takes to produce that water, that would be on your consumption rate.
Staffing it,
But
running.
the vacant land isn't using that.
Yeah.
The vacant land ERCs were to build the plant. not to pay for the electricity and everything else.
That's where the electricity goes, the basic electricity goes to the consumption rate, what you're paying per gallon.
Hey, Cal,
The people that don't pay for 6
The
months.
residents would.
It's no different than the people. This is a board meeting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this should be restricted and to the board discussing it. There's time for public comment. Mr. Jensen has a comment right now. He is a board member.
Cal, you represent seven districts, is that right?
Yes.
How many of those districts pay their water and sewer in a water and sewer bill? And how many are paying it like we do as a non-ad valorem tax?
None, because they don't have the CDD provide sewer and water. Now Gateway has no.
There you have it.
Have what?
Well, but that's because
They
they're
don't have a
not,
utility.
yeah, they don't have a utility and the water and sewer is being provided by the county or the city.
Right, but they still have to pay, they still have to share in the cost. So my point is, 6 of your 7 districts all pay water and sewer bill and much lower taxes because there's no non-ad valorem or very little.
But they
We're the
don't,
only one.
they don't have their own utility, so it would go
It
through
doesn't
the.
matter. It's just how you pay it. It doesn't matter if they have their own utility. We pay it monthly.
Oh, how they pay
We
it.
pay it in the taxes.
Okay, right, and I can't say that all of them, I've got Lee County personally, and mine's all in the bill.
Right. It's up, most of them are. And it's not, it's just a matter of accounting.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
unless it's debt, and then that's on the
Well,
taxes.
but that's the point with the 1 ERC per vacant acre versus 4 per acre, okay? If you're paying an assessment of 4 ERCs per 1 acre versus 1 per ERC on vacant land, then that vacant land is paying more money because it's not using any water.
But it
That's
still
only
has
common
the
sense.
availability.
Yeah, it has the availability. So maybe we need to change the ERC assessment lower on top of all that. If you don't want to give ERCs back, you change that assessment lower and raise the water rates.
Okay.
You can do that too.
It's just a game of numbers, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a game of numbers, except that the
Yeah.
vacant land wouldn't be paying as
But
much.
right now, yeah, when you
You'd
look
have
back,
to evaluate the cost of what it costs to produce a gallon of water and what it takes to treat it. Same thing with irrigation. And then make sure that your consumption rate is in line with that.
Right, but I'm just saying, if we don't change the ERCs,
well,
then we
what
can
I
always
like
change
about
the
the
water.
ERCs, it's stationary and you could run the CID with it.
Oh,
Where a
well,
water bill can fluctuate so much, it's gonna have to be
No.
adjusted every year to
So
see.
you're gonna
what's
have
there.
people screaming
Oh, yeah.
if they're up north and they're still paying $132 a month.
Exactly. Going up, it's no different for a vacant piece of land than it is for those individuals that are here for 6 months. And then they don't use any water at all for 6 months. They're still paying through their
They'll still-
non-ad
they'll
valorem. They're
still pay the
still paying for us to run their
Well,
land.
it is different because vacant land is used anytime.
Well, that's true, but they're
But all
still
that's-
paying
that's
for
all
it at
we're
one
thinking
point.
about today
No,
is vacant land.
we just got to get this so that these properties can be sold, so that we can, I mean, we're talking about 4 East, even if we sell that property back there, if we get 1 ERC per acre, which is better than we're getting now, which is nothing. And then if it gets developed, it's going to be well more than that. It's going to probably be 4, so it'll be 4 times that. So, but as long as it's vacant, we're getting nothing. So we're going to have to bite the bullet a little bit in the beginning to get it where we want. And then once the development comes in, then we're going to see the increases. The same thing for the towers or whatever they're trying to do over there. If they are ever going to do it, that's got to be a reasonable
Yeah,
cost.
I'm not sure, Tony, are you comfortable making changes like that?
Oh, I don't think
without
we're gonna do that.
Methodology study?
We don't have to do that
We can
now.
make a few, if the board's in agreement, You could say that there is 1 ERC per acre for vacant land.
Right.
1 ERC per vacant land for utilities that becomes a standby fee. And then the O&M would be the same, and that's for taking care of the roads, et cetera, et cetera. And once the plan is, then they would have to buy, if available,
Right.
ERCs.
And we come up with a new ERC value.
Yeah, but we're not going to change,
Not gonna
well,
change that.
it'd be going up. Because if you're going to take some out, it can only go up. Your expenses are your expenses.
Well, it should go up.
To everybody should pay.
No,
for
the
vacant
ERC,
land?
no. The ERC should,
The cost per ERC.
ERC, when we go to sell,
ERC
it
should
be
go
up.
potentially up, yeah.
Like if we sell them, they shouldn't be $4,000 anymore. They should be
Yeah, well, I
eight
think
or
we have
10,000.
to look into that number and see.
Yeah.
It would be less.
So
Because
we're,
debt is
we're
paid
we're
off.
talking about a different way to assess with the changes, but they're rule changes.
So what, in other words, what the discussion is that if we reduce the overall amount of ERCs, the current,
No, not the 1,032. No, that's
It's
based
like
on.
ERC impact fee, that when you
The
buy
number of
it.
ERCs that maybe are paying annual assessments.
Yeah,
you reduce those or?
Well, like this, well, what do we?
no, what we would do is, I guess there's two options. One, you're saying that transfer a lot of the cost to the monthly bill as overhead.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't know, that wasn't what I was getting at. I was just saying, I want a standard for this property over here.
For any vacant
Because we've
property.
already determined the other property can, if it's up to the board, can once we get a plan, we can relinquish those, or they can relinquish those ERCs.
Yes.
What do you,
But then the other vacant land that's available for sale, like, so that when a developer comes to us, they're gonna go, what are my costs? We're gonna say 1 ERC per acre on that from day one.
For utilities, and they might not have
but
enough.
why would you want to do that?
develop.
Yeah.
You already have the ability to either accept the offer from whoever wants to develop it or not. So it doesn't matter how, and
So-
we are in the driver's seat anyway, because they come and they say, we want to put in condos, and we want to put 300 condos in, and we're going to tell them, okay,
That's
you're
the
going to have to
ERC.
buy 240 ERCs to be able to put 300 condos in, since they're 0.8. That's what they're going to have to buy. Why would you want to change it?
Yeah, and you could even set that.
But we have,
standard.
yeah, but we already, that's right, but we can
25.
already, I guess it's different because we can take back what they would need anyway.
See, it is. We're in the driver's seat on parcel 13.
Right.
That's the point. We are the driver. We don't want to change that because we can do what we want with that parcel.
Because I found, I still think the guys that came in before thought they had to pick up that 210,000 or 200.
I don't think so. I told them, I don't know how many.
I think their
times.
problem
But
was,
now we can do that. With the rule change, we can do whatever we want.
that's correct. And we can also, we can phase in ERCs, say, all right, you're half finished the project, you'll pay, half the ERCs, and you finish the project, you pay them all. You could do that. But, that we don't want to get rid of the driver's seat. We had the driver's seat for parcel
Russ,
13.
Russ,
Okay.
I see you getting hung up on something. I'm going to try and free your mind. You have to realize something. Just listen to me on this. Without advertising it, without doing anything, the minute the people, the developers started seeing the Old North Hotel come down, the rats came out of the woodwork. And we had 3 separate buyers throwing $2 million at us. And it didn't matter one damn bit about ERCs. And if we're honest about it, the only reason they seized up on us is because Zeman, we caught him telling a story. And Bob and Jones, I don't know what his deal was, but we put pretty rigid. I'm guessing it was Sam's list of what we want. Okay, it had nothing to do with ERCs. They all stepped up. They were all going to pay $2 million.
I'm okay with it, the way we're
Yeah.
changing the rules now.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll change
We
it.
gotta stick to that because there's various reasons about
That'll be
whoever
fine.
buys it.
We change the rules, we can put, that means we can determine the
Exactly.
ERCs
Yes.
from day
Put
one.
it in our
That's
hands
what we're here
rather than
for.
take it out of our hands.
But we can tell them it's not gonna be immediate, we can, you know what I mean? That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Okay. So vacant land, if they come in with a plan.
Right.
That then they can say they want to relinquish, and then you guys would determine if you're going to accept them or not. It could be a transfer.
Right, but to sell it, like even to sell it, you tell us what you want to do, and that's how you're going to start out with those.
What, the other side of that is we don't, at least I don't see any consistency in O&M assessments. Like the property we've been talking about, they've got 6 and 10. Most of the others is the same ERCs per property. You know, if you got O&M of 10, you've got utility of 10. And somehow we need to come up with a way to determine what the general fund O&M expenses are. We know what the expenses are, but how do we allocate those? We charge per ERC, it's $359.89, whatever, and per ERC. But are we going to say that the O&M ERCs are the same as determined for utility, or are we going to say something different?
Wait, where is it different now?
Well, some of them are different. Like some of them are for O&M might be one rate.
No, not the rate.
Don't look at the utility, don't look at the utility. There's a separate one for
O&M too.
O&M, the general funds that pay for your streets, your
Yeah.
landscape.
So if you click now with residential, it's all one for O&M. But when you look at vacant land or, you know, maybe the South Hotel, multifamily, it's, well, no, multifamily is now the same. They made that change last time. So you've got a full ERC for hotels, condos, hotel rooms, condos, and for single family. They're all one ERC for O&M.
Okay.
But then you look at some of the others.
What's the O&M for, what's for vacant land?
It doesn't go down by vacant.
Depends on what you're building.
Yeah.
That's what determines it. You're hung up on that.
Well, then it should be the same everywhere. That's my point. If it's not, you gave me every category except the marine slip.
The,
Is this it right?
okay, well, here, for example, that portion of, that's Lake Lincoln. They've got 10 O&M ERCs.
What's Lake Lincoln?
That's part of Orchid Cove. That's
The
under
vacant
and
lots?
they're not paying, yeah. But 10 ERCs for O&M
Right.
and 1.8 for utility.
1.8.
Yes.
That was what was left over.
Right, that was left over from their development, and they, when they wanted to build more, they didn't have enough ERCs and they didn't want to buy any. And I'm not sure there was any available then.
So they had that just, it's that way because they only had 1.8 left.
Yes, they had X
But there should be
number-
more on that land then.
Well,
There should be
there,
10.
other people are paying. Yeah. There's not 10,
Well,
there's
you said
1.8.
you said,
There's 10 O&M,
right,
but there's 1.8 utility.
because that's all they had.
Right.
Technically, it's
They
vacant
should
land,
have had
it's
10.
10.
Yeah, and I'm not sure of the calculation, where it would be, but I
So-
think it wouldn't be 10. It might be 11, it might be 13, it might be 8.
It's one big
But-
project, and it isn't just that, like,
You know, you guys are looking at it wrong though. That's still vacant land. And it's 10 that we have not been charging
Well, no,
for.
it's 10 for the total, right?
10
No,
the whole-
10 for Lake Lincoln total,
Okay.
O&M.
So that's 10 that's never been charged.
Oh,
All
well,
this whole time,
they
because,
haven't
just
paid.
because they didn't own it. They only owned 1.8.
No, okay, they had 1.8 left over,
Granted,
but that, they were originally assessed 10.
okay. All right. But you're
they
still,
used the 10 somewhere else in their development.
yeah, but it's no different. We're still not collecting it. I get that. I get that. But that's just like, there was, how many ever there are in the back, we knew how many ERCs are available on that land. It's always been the same in the back, right? And the parcel 13, what was assigned to that?
For the
Parcel 13, yeah, was 180, or it's off of here now, but it's,
But so you had 10 ERCs that maybe should have been applied to that property, even though they weren't there, they should have been charged for it. Then I guess somebody would be in arrears to us that owned that property.
yeah, I don't know what was assigned originally.
Hmm.
Rob
how
did
did
some
they manage it?
calculations. They assigned 10 ERCs.
What
No,
they
but how
had
many-
to use, that's how they used them. They decided how they were gonna use them.
Okay.
Well, you have
It's the
two
same thing
different
that's going on.
ERCs
Well, I get it.
allocations.
I get it, but they
Yeah, they
should have been the
probably
same.
should. Yeah, they should, they probably, but that's not what the board is. I mean, there's all types of them that are not the same. Well, Lake Lincoln's one. Let's see, the gun range is another. I think that's a gun range. Port of the Island, oh, in the Cays. Oh, that's a Southeast Commercial. It's 6 for O&M
And 10.
and 10 for the other, and that's probably for both lots. Yeah, the other one, they're both 6 O&M, 10 for utility. Okay, here's one, well, the North Hotel had no O&M, and then they had 19.2. Oh, that's on the condominiums. And here's some more at the South Hotel. But there should be if we should determine that whatever water sewer is will be the same number for the other parcels. I don't know how they come up with these numbers. We just charged what's always been charged.
In theory, the general fund assessment should be based upon,
Common area.
well, the beneficial use that that property receives. And so many vehicle trips would be a part of that roadway calculation. The general is the general as far as irrigation, probably in landscape.
Road maintenance, stormwater,
Yeah, so that would need to
mosquito
be,
spraying.
right. You know, the easy way is to just use the same thing as the utility. But
Although, remember, the section we just read, that 6 said if a person gets an adjustment in the ERCs for utilities, it doesn't change their ERCs for
Right.
assessment for O&M.
Yeah.
So
And maybe that's why these few are off.
I wouldn't touch those. I wouldn't touch it. Because if you change it, no.
But
Yeah, we need
with the
to know
vacant
more.
land, you're going to have to, or we should have some methodology that would reflect this.
But you're already charging. It's, oh boy.
if
$12
you were the county or the
owner.
city, you would have a road impact fee, you'd have a fire impact fee.
No,
you'd
this is
have-
budget.
Right, but if we were the county, that's how they
That's
would
what the money
recoup
is
that
for.
money. They would recoup it there for that initial impact. And then
Cover
on the
those
ad valorem tax, that's where the rest of that would
Right.
come into play, along with whatever gas tax they would.
Yeah, and this is based the same way on the value. You look at all of your revenues, if there's impact fees, there isn't, but all of your revenues, and you determine the number of ERCs, and you divide it into it, and then that's what you charge per ERC, and that's how you fund your budget. But
But the only places those are on is vacant land, pretty much.
That may be commercial and hotel.
yeah,
But it's still vacant. It's
Right.
not-
But if you put a gas station in it, it's going to have more impact on your roads than
Yeah.
a mini storage.
Right, but you change it then, don't you? When they put in what they're putting in, then
There's
you
no
change.
methodology that I know of to change that, though.
yeah, you don't have, there is no methodology for general fund. It was just established and always carried through.
I guess you could weigh it, I'm reaching. here.
Again, everybody's different, every community is different. In keep using Gateway, but what they did, they had the same approach for years. They used the allocation method that was approved for a water management bond issue back in the 80s, 5.1 acres of ERCs per commercial, 1 ERC per vacant parcel, per lot. So if you're platted 10 acres, you got 10 units. If you put 100 units on a plat, 10 acres, you got 100 ERCs or EAUs, whatever they wanted to call it. 2 years ago, they decided to look at it, 3 years ago, and came up with this another approach where, and they have a separate utility rate because they operate a water and sewer system, and they charge user rates, not under assessments. Came up with a methodology to allocate the cost of the roads, the drainage, landscaping, parks and recreation among all the properties. And and so you may have, multifamilies may have a lesser impact on roads, for example. If you apply traditional, and I'm not an engineer, traffic impact statements, they'll say a single family home generates generally 10 trips per day. Multifamily generates about 6.5 trips per day. 7-Elevens generate a gazillion trips a day. So then there was an adjustment. So now the commercial properties of the intense retail type, like the 7-Eleven here, is paying a lot more than it did before for the road piece. Before, everybody was paying based upon an ERC allocation. And so you had someone up, someone down. And that took about 2.5 years in town hall meetings, all 9 yards, in the new assessment approach to go through that. If you want to, you can do that, split that out in the ERC process. You can do the whole approach.
That'd be a nightmare.
I think the O&M was based off of the debt originally, because if you look at the 90, and using Steve's property as an example, there was only 6 ERCs per side, so total of 12. And some point in time, it went up to 10. And what Ron told me is that the developer said he needed more to do what he wanted for utilities. So they left it at the 6 and then increased on the 2 parcels, the utility to 10 and 10. But that was based off of, and that's what I see with a lot, the 1 acre, that's how they determine what the cost per for debt services. And then when the debt's paid off, they usually use 1 ERC and go off of that per parcel.
And my guess is, if by looking at it, that originally they had planned for some sort of a strip mall or something in that commercial property, and that's why they needed the ERCs. But then they didn't develop them, and the ERCs stayed with it, and that's why they've been that way for the last 20 years. So, that was the original idea, probably, was put a strip mall in there. You're going to need more ERCs to a strip mall.
Yes. Well, and we can get the consistency Tony, if I'm wrong, tell me, but we can get the consistency with just a simple rule change that says O&M is equal to not the amount, but the assessments is equal to the utility.
I'd have to think about that.
You'd have to think about that?
Yeah, because you have to have a basis for that change in methodology.
Well, but you established the utility one already. You've got a basis for that.
How do you establish the one for the roads?
Yeah. Well, if you're going to do all of that, then you need assessment methodology. And that you need to get somebody in to do that.
Right now, how much is that going to affect us leaving it like it is? Is this property ever going to be developed?
You can leave it as it is.
We can address it in the future, right? We can.
Oh, yeah, it can always be looked at in the future.
Right now, it's not going to have any negative or positive effect.
What's your thoughts, Tony?
I have no idea what effect it's going to have.
Yeah.
But again, I think what might be helpful, I'll send you what Russ did before.
Yeah, I've seen numerous.
You might have to sell when we convert it.
Yeah, but if we do nothing, we still have that question out there of how are O&M assessments determined.
Initially, that started back in the 90s. We're questioning.
So if we just keep go forward, you don't see an issue.
We have the approach that started in 1990 or whatever time frame it was, but we have this initial resolution that talked about. It might be the basis for it. We've gone forward. And I can't tell you if someone was to challenge it that we could, I can never guarantee a result, okay? We have a technique and a process that's been utilized for years. And the key is whether it's fair. And that's basically a legislative function, and it's boards made that determination time and time again. We are continuing to use it. And so the board feels there is another approach they want to look at it. They want to do that. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And again, you've had this approach that's used over and over again since 1990. And what has changed to make it not equitable since 1990 and using that methodology? And I think that's one of the questions.
What's that?
It works.
Okay. I just don't want to, all of a sudden, you guys have to defend the O and M.
Well, you may have to. One thing which you may want to do, looking at the rule, again, recall that the rule says that even if you change utility ERCs, the ERC as to the non-ad valorem assessment does not change. Okay. You might be able to change that language in the rule, provide the ability to change the ERC for the non-ad valorem assessment. Then you still need to come up with an assessment methodology. That's what it says. In that subsection 6 that we just read.
Okay, so you can put language in the rule change that would protect us.
I think there's already language in there that says you can change the ERCs for the non-ad valorem assessment based upon the assessment methodology.
Okay.
You just have to do the assessment.
Right.
You want to spend, what is it, 15 for the assessment?
Oh, I think you can get it, just for an O and M, won't be that much. The debt ones are pretty expensive.
Yeah,
And they don't
especially-
have construction costs to
Well,
factor.
And you have a lot less units this year. We gave away, there were 6,000 parcels that were evaluated when they redid it. Yeah, that was a massive
Yeah,
job.
I mean, nobody ever thinks about the O and M because it's cheap. You know, it's under $400 ERC.
The question is, how big a headache do we want? It's basically what it boils down to.
Like this one isn't big enough.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. Do we want it bigger or not?
I think the impact would be minimal to the residents. If at all. I mean, I think it just provides you a basis going forward that would be defensible.
Well, the only thing that's positive about it is that now we have the potential to remove ERCs, take them back, or adjust them
Right.
as we sell them.
Utility ERCs.
Right,
Utility, yeah. That's a big one.
right. So the link, I mean, and everything takes not, doesn't happen until October.
Probably November, right now.
No. Well, the rule changes.
The rule change would be
Right. Dollar wise, it won't happen
until next year's budget.
Next budget.
As far
Right.
as, even if we change any of this stuff, nothing happens money-wise until next year.
Right.
Yeah,
A year from
Budget.
October.
well, June, July,
Right.
So any ERCs you would take back, they would still pay for this year, next year.
Yeah, but we need to know that by April so we could factor it in your budget.
Right.
So, okay. We'll make those changes. That's been,
we'll provide drafts and you can look at that and we can get some public input on that. And we can say, that's not what we meant, Tony, or yeah, you did a good job, or let's add a few more and then have a draft, do both, or all three.
yeah.
And then advertise the text. I mean, advertise and have a text available for public to look at.
I have a headache.
Just now? All right, are we done?
So, okay, so we're not gonna address we're not changing it?
the rates.
For O and M,
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like that.
All
We're,
right,
whatever they are, they are.
okay.
And those,
Small amount.
what they are is page 31 of your booklet.
Yeah.
And you see the far left column is O and M ERCs. And then the third column is water sewer ERCs.
In fact, your famous parcel there is only 6. And so you don't want to mess with that.
Well, still,
Well, we make it higher. but we make it-
that's what I mean.
Okay?
All right.
Linda?
If the board's done discussing and you've given us direction, then I think we can move on to audience comments. Sure.
My name is Linda Fernandez, I represent 242 Drive, and I just want to understand.
No vote.
Oh,
No, they can't, they're giving a consensus of direction.
Yeah.
So basically, we're talking about Steve's property. And you know, newly bought it, it had so many ERCs. Now you've changed it under the rules that if he decides he wants to give back or sell his ERCs, he is allowed to do that.
If we accept it.
So if, let's just say, for April, he comes to the board and says, I only need 5 ERCs. Take any number you want. The rest of the ERCs, then the board will say, okay, but do they have, what happens to those other ERCs?
We take them back,
And
and then everybody in here makes up the difference, whatever it is, to make sure we have the budget
Right, so
covered.
all this discussion is for the rest, so that he can lower his taxes, so the rest of the community is gonna have to pay for his.
We also have the parcel
Well,
back
and
here.
parcel of land back there.
Any undeveloped properties.
Yeah, and the undeveloped properties too. It's gonna
But then
change.
you also have that one parcel they're trying to sell,
On Newport County.
and for how many units they're advertising, they're gonna have to have more ERCs.
Right, you know, that's the-
Yeah, but
They've only
Well,
done
it
that
hasn't sold
2-3
because
times.
this process hasn't changed.
Well, you know, as Ray said before, there were people that wanted to buy that property back there, and the ERCs never came up. The ERCs didn't start coming up.
I think you need
No,
to
they
talk to,
can-
you gotta talk to those people and find out whether you think that was a part of it or not.
I
don't
think we should too, because that's exactly what it was. Had nothing to do with them.
they also said impact fees.
I was gonna say. the
Yeah,
big
that's
thing-
from the county, and that's a cost of doing
That's
business.
Yeah,
But, and doing one individual property is one thing. And we're looking at, what was the total, about 60?
About
That
60, pretty much,
potentially
yeah.
could be requested. I mean, if there was just 10 ERCs that you were given back by one owner, that's $17,000. You can easily absorb that in your budget.
That, you know, that includes like 33 that Sun's from sitting on right now. If he
Yeah.
decides to turn those back in.
yeah, see, that's the other thing. It's not only opening the door to the vacant parcel, it's opening.
Yeah, and maximum exposure is about 108,000.
Right, we don't want them back.
Everybody gets back.
Okay, but we already took, we gave, worst case scenario, that's the case. Worst case scenario, it's 108,000.
Yeah.
We can't absorb that. We do absorb 300,000, we just took back.
Well, because
But that's gone.
but when that went away, you increased the assessments by $450 per ERC, the board, the previous.
No,
board.
I know, but this previous year, we just gave back 300 per ERC.
But you had $500,000 that went off your expenses.
Right. So we're still sitting
Russ,
okay.
we didn't collect that money for at least 5 years.
I
So
get it.
Isn't that all of a sudden we have to make up
But-
that money?
But if, when we do this, say it is worst case scenario, it's $100,000, right?
A year,
A year, yeah.
not just once.
assuming that there's never going to be any development changes around here, that there never is going to get that property
That's
developed.
correct.
Right.
That's never going to change and start paying water fees and everything. You're assuming everything's going to be stagnant, and that's not the case. That's why we're trying to make the changes so that that does change and starts pulling in more money. And that development over by you maybe changes and brings in more money. You gotta do something in order to make it change. So 100 grand is not going to affect us. If we have to tighten the straps around here to prevent an assessment from going up for $100,000, I think it can be done. That's just me. So I don't think it's going to affect anybody's assessment if these ERCs are turned in by anybody.
Russ, that's insane. It's insane.
$100,000, we don't have a $100,000 cushion. That's what you're saying, right?
We've got 400,000 a year in infrastructure repair, no reserves, and we
Well, that's
can't
the problem.
afford to pay it.
That's what we're
How
going
the
to
hell
have.
can we eat 100 grand? That's nuts.
We just ate 300
What are you talking about? What 300?
when we reduced these assessments. We ate 300.
200.
We
No.
gave people their money back that they were already being assessed. We
Well, we
didn't
had-
eat it.
Yeah,
But you
when
have
we
to
asked
pay-
to increase that assessment, it was on a condition of, when the debt was paid back,
Right.
we would stop doing that. So what do? Lose good faith in this
We didn't pay
neighborhood?
it all back. Why didn't we pay it all
We
back?
paid 80% what
Okay,
we
but
felt
why-
we could
but we-
afford.
all-
It's better than nothing, that's what you're saying. Give nothing back and
So-
be greedy and keep it all so that we can give
How are we
away
being
ERCs. No,
You're
sorry.
just assuming everything's going to stay the same. And if we don't make changes, it will stay the same. So, and then things will go in arrears. The hotel pays $250,000. And what happens if that goes belly up? Even for a year, you lose that for a
It's gone
year.
belly up before.
It's not going to go belly up, first of all. That's a hypothetical that'll never happen. Number two, we're going through all this ad nauseum, 5 meetings now, to save Steve 35 grand a year. Really? Come
It's not-
on. And we're going to eat it? No.
All right. Well, you can take the 36,000 out of the mosquito budget, but when the county starts doing it for us, they'll take 36,000 out of there right there. So then then it drops it only to a $70,000 loss. So you cannot expect there to be change if we don't change the way these ERCs are handled and what's going on here. Nothing's going to change. It'll just cost us more and more money either way. We need more. We need more to spread the wealth. Developing that's going to spread the wealth. Developing that's going to spread the wealth.
Okay, just going back, I just want to make more that it's clear. What you're saying is, by him coming back and saying, back before April, and says, I only need X number, I want to give the rest of the ERCs back to you. The board says yes, because that's the progress. And basically, then the rest of the community, everyone else, the other 800 people, 800 residents or units that pay are going to be paying more.
I didn't say they're going to pay more. Ray says they're going to pay more.
Well, who's going to be paying the money that he's not going to
I think
pay?
what
Well,
she's saying,
you'll have to eliminate.
you have
you'll
more
have to
than
eliminate-
him, you have the
you'll
other
have to-
360.
You'll have to eliminate some capital improvements. Maybe
Eliminate,
What
you
you're
have to
saying is
done it.
absolutely correct. If you have this much you got to spend to run this place every year, and you give away this much, guess what? Everybody else is going to have to make up that much till we get back to this point. So yes, you're correct.
so.
Plus,
so
we can't pay what we're in debt now.
just developed that it hasn't worked in the last 4 or 5 years. So what's your answer? How do we get them developed? Or do we just leave them? Because everybody wants to sell them, but nobody wants to incur an initial cost. So what's your answer?
Why don't we wait and see if it sells or not, like it has twice already? You're saying nobody. We've had 3 players at 2 million.
Yeah, and
Don't
that was
think nobody's buying it.
I don't think the ERCs were the issue.
They
In
weren't.
either one, I think it's I would think especially when we let the second RV park look in that, its impact fees and what it was gonna cost to change the zoning and everything else, you add all that up, they weren't a big enough player. Their pockets weren't deep enough. You know,
So
somebody like-
Sam,
Yes.
wait, so it does require rezoning to make it an RV park?
Yes.
No.
This is
Why?
David, it does.
No,
I think the way it was a 6-month limit.
it's
But
RT.
They had to go down to the county.
Well, they also had the 10 acres that's in conservation.
Right.
That's gonna have to be changed. I just think that
That
they
was the
looked
due
at it
diligence, yeah.
and they just said, it's gonna cost more than we want to put out.
Right.
It's gonna take somebody like up here at Manatee Cove, that's what, 50 acres up there, the Manatee Cove, up there on Manatee Drive, right? That's about 50 acres. Somebody like that would come in, a Ryland Homes, who's got deep pockets and can wait a little bit to get the zoning the way they want it. That's the person that's going to buy it. It isn't going to be somebody that pockets aren't quite as deep.
So if you put in stationary housing back there, what does it require 8 to 9 feet elevation, Dave?
Zoning, Collier County zoning.
Well,
No, I'm asking a different question.
Yeah, as far as the fill, I would have to take a look at what the FEMA elevations are, but it would probably be very similar to what we're seeing on development down in the Cays. Whatever the finished floor elevation is going to be very similar to that.
Okay, but getting back to what she was saying, as far as, worst case scenario, you said 108,000, 100, right?
108, right.
Okay, so that's about $100 a unit out there. That's what it would cost the community. If we do that.
A year.
It costs
Why do
100.
we want to do that?
not-
180 a year. And it's 866, not 100. Why
And
do
then-
we want to put that burden on the residents? Why?
$100.
But we also,
I already showed Terry how it's gonna cost me when we switch mosquito control. It's gonna cost me $100 more.
No,
a year
you
out of
showed
pocket.
me, your calculation. I did my own calculation. It is nowhere by the amount you're showing.
My
And I
rate,
don't have that calculation.
Russ, I got to tell you, when they were there, separate issue, when they were here, they said it's going to cost us the same or less. They came right out and said that.
Came up with-
it's 0.1662 millage rate.
All
So
right,
my house
this is
value-
not about mosquitoes.
But I'm just telling you, it's $116 extra I'm paying.
well,
So
here's
That's your
here's the deal.
interpretation.
The $108,000 a year is $108,000. Yeah, that's $100. It's kind of like the next door discussion. That's $100 addition per household per year. Okay. But we still haven't solved the other problems, which are things are going bad. Things need to be replaced. And if we don't do something to bring that money in and make it, then guess what? Then residents are going to be paying $1,000 more a year because things are going to go bad and we're going to have to do something to replace them. So, or $1,500. You know, the point is we need to sell that land, get the money, and get an income stream.
If we sold the ERCs because we developed, we'd pick up $1 million.
Yeah, we need it real quick.
So that's just selling the ERCs. If we take them back and then we sell them, we pick up $1 million.
But you got to have somebody
So
that
you
wants
got
to
10
come in
years
there
to-
and develop it where you can sell the
The
ERCs.
buyer.
That's the point.
Are we ready for audience comments?
Yes,
Yeah,
I think.
More
for you.
audience comments.
Hi, when John Allen's
Could you use the mic, please? I'm not sure it's still picking up,
Yeah.
but
My name's Quinn Diamond, I live at 333 Sunrise Way. I just wanted to bring to your attention on page 31, a discrepancy that I see on commercial marina, the O&M ERC is 5.52. However, the commercial lot for track A and track B is at 6 OEM ERC. It's both are commercial properties. Also, I'm sorry, Russ, I have to disagree with you. I was taking, on a realtor, I was taking a tremendous amount of calls. There was so much interest in that property that Steve bought. However, nothing ever materialized out of it because, as you said, when they looked at all the different fees, including the ERCs, that really dissuaded them from buying the property. So it wasn't, you know, it wasn't that the ERCs didn't matter, they certainly do, because the number one thing that a buyer or his agent does will look at the taxes. And people were dropping over, dealing over, seeing how much those taxes were added on to the regular.
But the changes, if we make these changes,
So you agree with me?
And- they have the option to sell them or, you know, to someone else or us.
There's nobody.
There's no option right now.
Well, I agree having an option is fine, but I don't see where you're going to be, anyone is going to purchase EFCs right at the present moment unless
You have to ask
something
Steve why he did.
miraculous
I don't,
happens.
Yeah.
And there was one other point that I wanted to make and it totally escaped me. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to speak.
This is Steve McMahon. I have been dealing with Brian Jones now since he started coming in here. He's a day he sells buildings, and he also is the guy who wants to purchase the west side property. After the last meeting, when you guys said that it was due because there's something about getting older and what he says to me is it's 100% of all ERCs at $215,000. That's what his impression was, that he was going to pay day one. I know you guys are saying that's not what you intended. That's what he thought. And his other thing is, he sat here and listened to the meetings. He said it's a CID. Sorry to say that, but that's what he said.
CID what?
The CID board for mail. Because they weren't flexible. But
Not the community, what they were saying at the meetings.
I'm not attacking you, I'm just relaying what the man said. He said it very much has to do with yours.
We never even discussed ERCs
With them.
with Brian Jones ever. Never. I don't know where he got it. The
I
only,
discussed them with Mike Carr, and I told him you guys are flexible, that there's been discussion on staggering them, come in with a plan. I don't know if Mike told Brian or not. I never spoke to Brian.
And if it was a problem, why did he bring Brian forward at the next meeting? Okay? Why did he bring Brian forward if it was a problem?
Didn't I? Why didn't I bring him in?
No. the
Why
realtor.
didn't Mike Carr bring him? We told Mike Carr when he was there by himself, he said he had a buyer, the whole thing. And he said right to me, well, I've been sitting here and it sounds like you've got a big problem with these ERCs. Okay, then don't bring your buyer. But he brought his buyer, okay? He's lying. That
again,
happened right in front of us, okay? He was being cute.
as I said, we talked ERCs with Zeman. We talked, because we were talking about, they were talking about 300 RV sites, so that'd be 140, 120 ERCs. But we never discussed anything about phasing them in, when they had to pay for them, anything like that, because we never got to that point. know, and the same thing with Brian Jones. I know we never said that. You may have talked about the number of ERCs will be dependent upon how many units you're going to put in, but they should know that. I mean, you know, but they've never come to the CID and said, I'd like to put in, you know, here's how we'd like to do it. We'd like to pay for, you know, a quarter of the ERCs for here and a quarter here and a quarter. We would have probably gone along with it.
But see, that was never, it never got to that point because they they had to do the rezoning first,
Yeah.
which would have cost them $100,000. And then there was no guarantee from us what we were gonna do because we wouldn't give them anything. All we were doing was placing demands on them. You gotta have the type C, you gotta have this, you gotta have that. And not once did we even insinuate that we were gonna give them a break on the ERCs. When it came up, I brought it up, I don't know in what order, but I brought it up that you guys realize you're gonna be responsible for the ERCs from day one. And I swear to God, it was in the meeting. I don't know if it's in the transcripts anywhere or anything, but they were going to be responsible for that. We kept talking about the $200,000 we were going to get right up front on top of the,
That was
on top of the 2 million.
that was Zeman, and we said that, but we never got into that
But
discussion
it was the
about.
same.
Right. We did, he was going down to the county, he wanted the old hotel property, the dormitory property, he was gonna look into it with them and see if he can get that. He wanted the whole package.
Okay, well,
And what they do on their due diligence time is whatever their motive
Right.
is, their
Money
direction.
was no object.
Not everything is the ERCs.
no, it was the,
Yeah,
I understand, I'm sorry, but I understand. The Seaman guys and the Jones Brothers guys were, to me, when we were talking to them, they were being told what they could do. And I don't think that went over well. I don't think there was any, like, well, maybe we could try this. It was just, we were telling them.
Well,
That's just the way it came across.
Well, I think that's
As I
correct. I think we were telling them because we were talking about an RV park that
Right.
we had certain ideas how it was going to be. The last thing we wanted it to be was a trailer park.
Right.
So we wanted upscale and we wanted this, we wanted that, we wanted this. We were very upfront what we wanted.
But I still think it came across as we were.
No,
very
because the
flexible.
neighbors were very concerned.
But I don't think an RV park is even in the question, because I don't think anybody wants an RV park. I'm sorry, you know, I mean, it's, and that's from the community and everybody else doing, I don't want an RV park, say it right up front. So I mean, you guys are placing demands, I didn't care because I didn't want it anyway. That's why I knew it wasn't gonna go through. So,
Well, I said it wasn't going to go through because of.
But listen, they're big boys, okay? They're big boys. They know how to counter, they know how to negotiate, and they know how to lie. And they did, okay? They lied. Let's come right out and say it. They changed the offer. They changed the lettering. There was nothing about 55 and over. There was nothing about high end. There was nothing about anything. They left us wide open. And our legal counsel told us that their contract, 32 pages, was all slanted their way. Did you miss all of that? They lied to us, over and out,
They weren't the good guys.
okay? They lied to us. It's over. They're gone.
okay, are we done then? Are we- any more-
Need a motion to adjourn.
Do you have another question that you remember?
Yes, one question that I had was, what happens if a commercial piece of property gets rezoned to residential? Then do the ERCs stay as they are on the commercial property, or do they go and become residential ERCs?
They would become
Depends on the
residential.
plan.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, it
depends.
depends.
That's why we're saying to Steve, bring us the plans.
But
If,
see,
if the plans are residential, the ERCs should be changed to residential.
yeah, we can adjust that now too, so.
So just let me clear this up. So if I go to put in houses on those properties, I have to be zoned to do that. Then I'm just gonna pay for what those houses are on there. So if I put 5 houses on one side and 3 on the other, it's 8 ERCs.
8 ERCs.
That's
Rule change.
After the rule change.
As long as we vote that you can do that for the other.
From what I'm hearing, that point going my way.
Well, what's right is right. Hopefully people will do the right thing. I mean, if you had 5 homes there, it'd be 5 ERCs. Why should it be different?
We're not voting on that right
No,
now.
no,
We're doing a rule change.
We have the rule change, we have the ability.
Appreciate
You know, it doesn't happen overnight.
coming in today.
And if you can come with some plans, that would help, because that always comes up.
Okay, if you're set, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Tony, can I get your notes?
See where you can plan for this.